Hey everybody, what's going on? It is Justin from Justin Paul Sports, and we're going to go over some NFL Week 2 preview. It's going to be pretty exciting stuff. We got our Pick 6 college football pack that we always do at the end of the show. But something that just needs to be said from the beginning of the show is just really, really tragic what happened in Utah with Charlie Kirk, and just want to publicly condemn any kind of thing like that. It's absolutely reprehensible and disgusting. We don't resolve our differences in any manner, but with debate and with what's right and what's wrong. And killing people under any circumstance is absolutely unacceptable. It's disgusting. Hopefully, Charlie is in heaven. He is in heaven, and his poor family's left behind to pick up the pieces of someone who's absolutely just a monster of a human being. And it's kind of difficult to segue into something like that into what our show is about. But for those of you who know me, I live in Phoenix, and Turning Point USA is a stone's throw from my home. And it just kind of, you could feel the vibe in the air. It's a real somber mood. But one thing we do know about Charlie is that he was a big Oregon Ducks fan, big college football fan. He enjoyed sports, videos of him circulating and just talking to people and being good to people. And regardless of whether you agree with somebody or not, it's a really quality human being that we've lost. So hang in there. And just remember, we're not guaranteed tomorrow under any circumstance, no matter what it is. And that's never the right way to go resolving issues. But with that being said, just kind of bring on my co-host here, Bobby from Bobby's Big Board out in the Mississippi area. Bobby, what's going on your way in the neck of the woods?
Look, man, Mississippi State should have a number next to their name. That's all I'm going to say. Last weekend, I was in Starkville. We upset number 12, Arizona State. A phenomenal game. I was there to witness us storm the field. That was amazing. But outside of that, NFL is full go right now. We've got, week 2 just started, Thursday Night Football. The Packers are starting out 2-0, looking really strong. They were one of my picks, them and the Buccaneers, for the NFC Championship. So excited to see how they continue that momentum. But overall, I'm excited for this weekend's game, both college and NFL. But yeah, I'm just super excited. Ball is back, and I can't be more happy about it.
Yeah, the weather's it's the 12th of September. I mean, everybody knows it's turning in. The weather is going to cool off in the desert, thankfully. And unfortunately, it doesn't really kind of get those fall temps until November around these parts. But the rest of the country starts to cool off, and they like their pumpkin spice lattes, and all they're getting ready for Halloween and gear in and back to school and everything that's great about America. And what we love about America is the birthplace of the beloved sport of football.
Absolutely.
Founded in Rutgers University and just has been an unstoppable phenomenon. What a great game. It's why I love covering the game. We love covering the NFL. We love covering fantasy sports. We love covering dynasty sports. We love covering sports bettings. So this is kind of your ultimate hub for all those things, mostly NFL right now. And we got, like you said, we had an elite matchup on Thursday. Go Pack Go. Seemed like a serious, legitimate NFC contender.
Absolutely.
I think that they can, with that revamped defense, they were the only team defensively last year that kind of kept the Eagles in check. If you look in their season opener and in the playoff game, Philadelphia did not blow them out, and the Packers had a ton of injuries going in that game, but we'll see. That game might be held at Lambeau for the NFC Championship, but I'm not saying all that. But I am saying that we should get to our first game on the board, Bobby. What do you got for us?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and look. So let's go straight into it. So first game we were talking about here is the Giants at the Dallas Cowboys. So I know the Dallas Cowboys, they did start off with a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles, but I thought they played great. Dak's stat sheet didn't look the best, but I thought he played really well. And a team that really didn't play well in week 1 was Giants. They put up 6 points versus the Commanders. I like the Dallas Cowboys minus 5.5 here. How do you feel about this line?
This is a line that I'll give away. I think the Giants are fighting for their lives. I think this line's really good. I think the Cowboys were grossly undervalued going into week 1 because of the whole shenanigans with Micah Parsons. But everybody else is healthy in that football team. I mean, Deron Bland's going to be out, though, I know, in this game. He's been hobbling around after signing that fat contract. But the Giants if they're going to go Russell Wilson, I feel it's going to be a pedestrian offense. Brian Daboll's season's on the line. It's panic. He's got the hottest seat. It's hotter than McDaniels, in my opinion. I mean, McDaniels' team just looks sloppy. The Dolphins just look really sloppy, but I think the Giants are going to be in panic mode.
Absolutely.
So if we're saying 5.5 here, I'm going to take. I'm going to give the 5.5 if I have to pick this game because I think that they'll beat the Giants by a touchdown.
Yep.
But I think that this will be the last game Russell Wilson starts if he don't win. Whether it's fair or not, I think that he knows his job's on the line. The kids are going to want to see the rookies. The team's already. You start going past 0-2, you'll start losing the team, and then it's over. And Daboll's a good coach. I think he's a really good coach.
I agree with you on Daboll. I think he's a really good coach. I think they'll still give him a year just because the roster itself has just been slowly building itself. But you do need to have the answer at quarterback, and you need to get the running game under wraps. I know they got Scadaboo, and they have Jackson Dart both waiting, basically. So, yeah, I do like the Cowboys here. Let's go ahead and look at the start-sits for this week. So, just so we don't go 3 hours, I will be going through these a little bit quicker, but they're pretty much copy-paste from last week for the most part. Malik Neighbors, I feel like he's a must-start every single week. He's going to get a ton of targets. And Wan'Dale Robinson as well. He's a guy that's going to get you sneaky 10 points pretty much every single game, 8-9 targets every single game. He's their short yardage, first down guy. Dak Prescott, like I said earlier, really good game one. Only put up 7 fantasy points, but I think he's going to really hurt this Giants defense because they did not look good despite how much talent that they have. And with CD, I know he had a couple drops. He was on the field. He was the first person on the practice field the next morning catching on the jugs machine. So I think we're going to expect a real bounce-back game from CeeDee Lamb. Even though CeeDee Lamb had 18 fantasy points week one, he could have had like 30 if he would have caught those 2 big-time catches. And Javonte Williams, a guy that I really wasn't sure about, played super hard. He's not as explosive as he was at North Carolina, obviously, because of the injuries, but he played really hard. He's their only goal line back, in my opinion, and I think he's earned the majority of the running snaps for Javonte Williams, so I think he's a sneaky guy to start. And then for sits, Russell Wilson, he looked horrible week one versus the Commanders, who didn't have a great showing Thursday Night Football against the Packers, and I mean, they just made the Giants look horrible. So Russell Wilson, he's a fade for me. Same with the running backs as well for the Giants. We don't know if Scadaboo is going to get more touches this week. Tyron Tracy didn't look particularly good. I think he averaged under 2.5 yards a carry in week one. I know it wasn't the greatest game script. George Pickens, I think, is good for a couple of big catches a game, but you're going to have to rely on him getting a touchdown or a big-time catch for him to be relevant, I think, with how they utilized him in week one. So staying away from him. And then Jake Ferguson, he's a little banged up. I think I'm going to stay away from him if you have a better option at tight end, of course. Anything that you see in here that surprised you or anything that you disagree with?
Nothing that's super surprising. I do like the Giants receivers with just Stephon Diggs, so Wan'Dale could really have a good game. The rest of it looks really good. It's pretty much on point. I mean, you could potentially start Pickens, just depends how deep your roster is, but these are the better options on the left. Yeah, I think Russell Wilson, I think this is it. He's going to be under the hot seat, super nice guy, but like got cement in his feet and just can't throw outside the 20-yard, like can't throw outside the numbers.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Those moon shots.
Yeah, for sure. So then we're going into the next game. Off the rip, we got the Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are at home. They are favored by 3 points. I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers looked phenomenal week one. It was a great game against the Jets week one. You were right about Aaron Rodgers, just the petty man that he is. He had to go out there and look like prime Aaron Rodgers against the Jets.
It's going to be that season, Bobby. It is going to be that season for him. I think this is his swan song. I think that he really has a sore. I mean, he even said after the game it was great. It's great because I saw him do this with Green Bay towards other teams, but when he talks the shit, it's so good. Like he said, I want to beat everybody in the Jets organization. If you want to beat everybody associated with the organization, not just the coach or not just the team, but the entire organization, Jets fans just had to eat it. But there's another revenge factor in this game, and his name's DK Metcalf. So I think that that's going to be kind of a spicy matchup there.
Yeah, I do think he's going to get some targets for sure. But I do like the Pittsburgh Steelers on this one. I think the Seahawks offensively looked really poor outside of JSN in week one with the 49ers. The 49ers are banged up, even more banged up now than they were in week one, of course. hoping and praying Christian McCaffrey stays healthy for my Dynasty rosters. But I do like the Steelers here. Any insights you want to give on this game, or should we keep rocking and rolling?
Just a little bit on this. I do think we're going to see a little bit more from Jaylen Warren, because I've got some shares of Caleb Johnson, but he's just not going to get the touches right now. So it's unfortunate. But when it comes to Seattle, like I said at the beginning of the season, the offensive line is really, really shaky. And I think that TJ Watt just might go off here. I think that this is Steelers can cover that at home as well. Yeah. But man, I don't think the Seahawks match up to them at all.
Yeah. With how much motion that the Seahawks like to use with Cooper Kupp and JSN, I think on the road here it's going to be a big factor, because when you're on the road you can't do all these motions and things because you'll lead to pre-snap penalties. So I think the Seahawks are going to be kind of playing not up to par on offense, even more so than they were in week 1. So let's go ahead and look at the start sits for this game. So Aaron Rodgers proved me wrong week 1. I had to see it. I saw it, so I am in on him. Does he offer you any rushing upside whatsoever? No. Did he get hit a good amount of times against the Jets? Yes. He got clobbered a little bit, which kind of makes me fear of the whole how long is he going to be able to play this year. He kept getting up, so as long as he stays durable, I think he's a startable option every single week as long as he's playing to this standard. Again, Jaylen Warren, I do think he's a guy that's going to continue to get touches, even though he wasn't particularly explosive in week 1. And then DK Metcalf on the revenge game. I do think he had a decent amount of solid targets in week 1. All he needs is one big-time catch versus this defense. And the Seahawks didn't play very good on defense either. So I think DK is in store for a big-time game. And then for the Seahawks that I'd like to start, JSN I think is an automatic start. He's a guy that's he's like Wan'Dale Robinson on steroids. You know how Wan'Dale can get you 10? Jackson Smith-Njigba at his floor is getting you 12, 13. So he's a guy that can have big-time upside any given week with a very safe floor. So JSN, really good player to have there. And then Zach Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker, man, he's been banged up all offseason. Zach Charbonnet looked really good in week 1. I would like to continue to see him get fed the rock while Kenneth Walker's recovering from whatever he's got going on. He did not look very good in week 1, and he is also a trade candidate. I think Kenneth Walker might be on the trade block before the trade deadline. And then for the sit, Sam Darnold, like you said, he's terrible against pressure, and TJ Watt is a lot of pressure to deal with, as well as Cam Hayward. So there's some guys that are going to be pressuring him, and I think he's going to have a poor performance in this game. The Steelers have a great defense historically all the time. So Cooper Kupp, he didn't get many targets whatsoever in week 1. It was the JSN show for the most part. So until Cooper Kupp shows me something, I'm out on him. Same thing with Kenneth Walker. Not a good performance at all in week 1. I think he's still banged up. He's nursing some injuries. I am out on him until he proves me otherwise. Super talented, but I'm staying away from him. Then Caleb Johnson, a guy that I do suggest you guys buy. I do think you should buy some Caleb Johnson if you can. He only had 2 snaps in week 1, 1 carry for -2 yards. I think his playing time will uptick as the season goes on, because I do not believe Jaylen Warren is going to start more than 8 games this year, either due to performance issues or durability. And then Pat Freiermuth, he's just a guy that's just not going to be able to be a consistent option for you in this offense. Not to pick on Freiermuth, he's been consistent in the past, but as of right now with this offense and the weapons that they finally have, I'm staying away from Pat Freiermuth.
Well, whether it's redraft or dynasty, the entire right side, all of your sits, except for Caleb Johnson, I wouldn't play any of them this week anyway. I wouldn't have any of those guys on my team. Kenneth Walker got out carried 2-1. Mm-hmm. Charbonnet took all the carries last week. Kenneth Walker can't stay healthy. The man has valgus, and he cannot keep his groin or his hamstring from being hurt every year. It's sell. If somebody's sucker enough to buy that guy, you go do it now. Do it now while he's in season. Or if he has, let's just say he has a great game against the Steelers, that's when you trade him, because somebody's going to be like, oh man, Kenneth Walker's so good. Everybody's just all overdue. But week 4, he'll, God forbid, have another injury and then have to miss 6 weeks.
Yeah, and that's what I'm fearing of. He's just always been that way. I know a lot of people that really still like Kenneth Walker because he is super talented. He's just always banged up. Caleb Johnson, I would not start right now, but he is a guy that you want to stash, and I guarantee you he will be somewhat relevant by midseason if I had to guess. But on to the next game. We're rocking and rolling, guys. Rocking and rolling. We have the LA Rams on the road versus the Tennessee Titans. The Rams are 5.5-point favorites. You know, like I said in week one, the Titans had a tough ask of them. A rookie quarterback going on the road to play against one of the best defenses in the country in the Denver Broncos. And look, they didn't have a great performance. Cam Ward, he had the lowest amount of yards of any quarterback week one. I think they have a bounce-back game, especially at home. They kind of knew it wasn't going to be a great showing. I thought the defense for the Titans played great. I don't know, man. I think the Rams are solid, but the Titans could absolutely cover this, if not just outright win the game. I really like Cam Ward, his leadership, and everything that he showcased thus far. He hasn't been rattled by the loss. So how do you feel about this line, and do you think the Titans could actually pull this off? I kind of think the Titans could do this.
Well, after the game last week, they had the presser, and the Titans coach doesn't understand the rules of football. Or professional football, and it's a really
away
bad
a catch
look.
From Elick.
It's just a bad look, and I think that can put some real pause into what's going on. Cam Ward, to his credit, Cam Ward is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in this game, and I say that not just because he was picked first overall, but because everything about him is genuine. His work ethic is fantastic. He knows exactly what he's doing. He took full accountability for how the game went. He understood to his teammates. He understands, he leads them. You can already see it. You know, he's like, hey, we played terrible. We need to do this. Doesn't seem to put the blame elsewhere. But as far as the matchup here, it's the home opener. We're going to see how Cam Ward responds. I just have question marks about coaching with the Titans because that can be super detrimental.
Absolutely.
Another. I mean, he's only in his second year here, but I mean, you can't. That's a really bad look. That press conference was a really bad look for him.
He's had multiple bad looks. Last year with Will Levis, just throwing Will Levis under the bus every time he could. I mean, it's just not a good look.
It's not. That's part of it, but if you don't understand the rules of the game, then you should not be a head coach in the National Football League at the highest level with the most elite talent and be considered, somebody to be feared. I think the Rams roll them. Sadly, I think the Rams have got the coaching, the quarterback, the talent, Kyron Williams. I don't want this for the Titans, but I don't think that I think Jared Verse goes back there and really, really makes this life a living hell all day long Sunday. So, we'll just see what the fantasy starts are here because the Rams just feel like definitely overmatched for the Titans. It's just, and again, it goes back to coaching and – a lot of I don't see any real elite talent that's developed yet to where you trust them to pull out a football game to win it yet.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with you there. I do think there's some things to like about the Titans offense. I know they didn't have a great showing, but let's go ahead and get into the start sits here. So first guy that I'm going to go ahead and talk about, Kyron Williams, a guy I was not big on last year because I didn't think he was going to get extended. Well, I was wrong. Kyron Williams goes out there, gets extended, and he's continuing to run the rock. Kind of reminds me a lot of Josh Jacobs in the way that he runs, just a real hard-nosed runner, always getting extra yards. I think he's going to get the volume every single week, similarly to Jacobs. So I think he's a must-start. If he's your RB1, do not feel bad about that at all. And then Puka Nacua, he had a couple of injury scares in week one. I think if you own Puka Nacua, you're completely fine with that. You're expecting him to get hurt at some point. But Puka Nacua had a great week one showing. You continue to do that until Matthew Stafford gets hurt. And Devontae Adams had himself a solid game as well. I still think these receivers for the LA Rams, especially versus this Titans defense, can get going and have some fantasy relevant performances in week two. Then for the Titans, look, for Tony Pollard, he is the workhorse in this offense. If they come out and they actually get ahead at any point, I think Tony Pollard is going to have a big day, and they're going to try to run the offense through him. He didn't have the best week one showing, but I still think he's going to have a consistent 12 to 14 points every single week. And then last but not least, Calvin Ridley. I know he had some big-time drops, but with Calvin Ridley, he led the team in targets. Cam Ward has not lost faith in him. And, it was against the Denver Broncos defense, guys. Calvin Ridley, he was up against the Defensive Player of the Year last year in Pat Surtain. I think Calvin Ridley will have a bounce-back season this year. He had 1,000 yards last year with subpar quarterback play. So Calvin Ridley, I think, is a solid start in your flex. Then for the sits, Cam Ward, like I said, I need to see it first. Week 1, tough showing. I'm putting that off of him. We knew he wasn't going to do great week 1. Tough ask, but I need to see it first. Elick, he didn't have a bad game either. He was second in targets. He could have had a big-time catch, but, of course, Callahan didn't know the rules. Elick, I think he's a solid guy after this year, but as of right now, I just need to see more consistency from these receivers outside of Ridley before I can start starting them with faith. And then for the offense for the Rams, Matthew Stafford, he's just a guy that gets a ton of yards, but not a ton of touchdowns. He always ends up throwing a pick or two every single week. He's a guy I'm cool with him being my QB3, but I'm not starting him unless one of my two guys are out or in a bad matchup. Terrence Ferguson, a guy a lot of people was excited about because of his athleticism. He didn't do anything in week 1. Will Dissly. I forget the starter for the Rams, but he outsnapped him a decent amount, which makes me think Terrence Ferguson is still trying to learn the offense. So keeping him off of my starting lineups for now, but I am excited about him in the future. And then Jordan Whittington, last guy. He's a guy some people are trying to start. I think he's got like a 10-point projection every single week for whatever reason. He's a guy that I'm keeping off as a third option in this offense that doesn't put up a ton of points. I think he's only relevant if he gets a touchdown or if one of the starters goes out. So that's pretty much all the guys that I really have thoughts on in this game.
All I've really got for your sits and starts. The only one I disagree with is I think you could start Stafford against the Titans. I don't think the Titans are exactly anybody to be feared. I've seen teams run over them at home last year. Defensively, they don't scare me one bit. There's no elite playmakers in the secondary. I think that he'll have a big game. I think
Stafford. You saw what Bo Nix did in week 1. He laid a stinker. He laid a big-time stinker, and I love the Broncos' offense, but they couldn't get anything going against this Titans defense. So I got to see it for Stafford, man.
That's another difference is Stafford's done it. He's had success. He can throw for 4,000 yards. I think that he'll be fine. I don't think he's necessarily a sit. I think that's the only player I would disagree on.
That's fair. All right, moving onwards. Bills going to MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets. The Bills are 6.5-point favorites. Man, look, if Josh Allen plays like this all year, I don't know who beats them. I mean, they were down big in the fourth quarter, and Josh Allen he was just throwing darts all over the place. Tight windowed throws, didn't matter. He was making things happen. Right now, he's my MVP. Obviously, it's only week 1, but I do like the Bills. I don't think I can go against the Bills in any asset right now. I'm probably staying away from the line, but I don't think the Jets are going to be taking this one away from the Bills.
Well, the Jets also they essentially had a chance to win the football game last week at home against Steelers. Things are definitely optimistic there. Let's be real. Sure. Buffalo gave up a ton of points last week. Everybody just forgets about it because they were so jacked up about how they came back to win against the Ravens. Sure. It was the game of the week last week. There's zero doubt about it. But it shows that Buffalo definitely has some issues stopping the run. I know the Jets have a 3-headed monster in the backfield if they want to do it. I love the points here. I think that's a lot to give a team that scored a
3-point game.
Yeah, I think that the Jets can win this game. The Jets can win this game because they can move the football and they've got better. They don't have Jair Alexander getting roasted in the backfield like the Ravens did. I mean,
that was
a
bad
choke job. What a choke job that was last week. I think the Jets have a chance to win. I'm not saying they will, but I think that 6.5 is a pretty generous line. Could be, a 35-31, 33-30. I think this game hits the over, whatever the line is. It's going to be a fun, high-scoring. Both teams are going to be, but I think that the Jets can cover that line rather easily.
Yeah, both of these teams offensively did great. Both had over 30 points. The Bills had over 40 in week 1. So, yeah, I definitely think this could be a shootout for sure. So, let's go ahead and get into the start sit. So, I mean, let's go ahead and talk about Justin Fields, a guy who, hey, look, I don't really know if he can read a defense, but he's a baller, man. He's a baller. He's been a baller for years, and he can run the football. He can hand the football off. He can do all of these things, and he's getting the ball to Garrett Wilson, which we'll talk about in just a second. I think Justin Fields is a start until he has a stinker, and then we have to – I think I'm starting him every week just because of the rushing upside until he really has a bad stretch of play. Week 1, he did really well, had multiple rushing touchdowns. Justin Fields, I think, is a stud. I am keeping him on my starting lineup unless I have the elite of the elite at my quarterback position. Garrett Wilson, man, I mean, he's one of the – I know he didn't get the catch. Jalen Ramsey blew him up on 4th down, but seems like he's fully healthy. It's football, but he still had a great game.
Play. Yeah.
Exactly. He had a great week 1 showing. He had a ton of targets. Fields just kept trying to pepper him the ball. And Garrett Wilson, I think he might have his best season yet with Justin Fields. And then with Breece Hall. Look, I was avoiding this Jets running back room because I did not know what it was going to be between Braylon, Breece, and Isaiah Davis. Breece Hall got the bulk of the carries, massive bulk of the carries, and he looked great. He had a big time. I want to say it was a 50-yard rush. Kind of props those numbers up a little bit, but still had over 100 yards. It was him, Derrick Henry, and Travis Etienne, who we'll talk about in a little bit, that all had over 100 yards. That was it. And I think Breece Hall, he's back to starting him with confidence every single week until he proves you otherwise. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield, of course. Then Josh Allen, he's a no-brainer. He should be the guy that you start above any other player, regardless of position, every single week. The man is an animal. Not much else to say there. James Cook, a guy that looked really good in week 1. I'm going to continue to start him. I think he has another top 10 finish under his belt at the running back position. Wasn't super high on James Cook because he was going to play this year, but gets the extension. Love me some James Cook this year. Khalil Shakir, a guy that if you're starting him, only expect 8 to 10 points. That's pretty much his ceiling/floor. His ceiling and floor are the same thing, basically. He's going to be a consistent option of 8 to 10 points every single week, but you're chasing upside. If you have some Keon Coleman's, who's not on here, but I would start Keon Coleman this week over Shakir. Shakir's just not a guy that's getting you a ton of touchdowns or a ton of targets, really. Then Dalton Kincaid, I know he had a good week 1. If you have a better tight end like Kyle Pitts or one of the guys that are better options, I probably wouldn't start Kincaid, but Kincaid's still a solid, okay tight end. If you have other options, I wouldn't start him in your flex or anything. And then Josh Reynolds, I know people are kind of hyping him up as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. I'm not starting any wide receiver not named Garrett Wilson. I mean, in this offense, I'm staying away from him. Braylon Allen, he looked really bad. I think he went 6 for 9 yards and a touchdown. He's their goal line back, but like I said, I love Braylon Allen, but you're only happy if he gets a touchdown. Outside of that, he's not giving you any points. So definitely avoiding Braylon Allen this week, even though I think he's a good dynasty hold at this point. And then last but not least, Mason Taylor. I know he had a big 20-yard catch, but that was basically it in this offense. And I don't want to say this offense is bad, but they're not going to score 30-plus points every single week. And Mason Taylor had 1 target. So staying away from Mason Taylor for now, and that's basically all I got for this game. Love me some Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, though.
I will push back a little bit in saying that the Jets have the capacity to score those kinds of points, though, just because you can see the rhythm. I mean, it was a really rhythmic offense against the Steelers, but they gave up some big plays. But I think I really do think that this, out of the 3-headed monster of Detroit, I think that he's going to have the more successful year than Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson, because he's got better defensive players than either one of those 2 teams. Quite frankly, I think that the Jets can score a lot of points. I agree with you. Start sits here. I was never big on Kincaid. I can't believe the Bills drafted that guy in the 1st round. I was floored by that. I didn't think he was an elite talent. I do not think he's an elite talent. I just think that there's way better options out there. Picking tight ends in the 1st round to me is crazy, unless you're somebody who's a superstar.
like Kyle Pitts, but
And
Kyle
then you
Pitts
don't use
didn't
them.
even.
Then you don't use them, But like that's a Falcons fumble, not a Kyle Pitts fumble. But good list. Good list.
Hey, well, look, once we get to a certain matchup here in later, I'll be talking about a tight end that's basically not a tight end. You might know who I'm talking about, but love me some of that guy. But for now, we're going to be talking about the Patriots going on the road versus the Miami Dolphins. And the Dolphins, minus 2.5 point favorites here. I know the Patriots didn't have the best week 1 showing versus the Raiders, but the Dolphins being favorites on any team right now is kind of surprising because they did not have a good week 1 at all.
Well, we saw the premiere of Indiana Jones over there in Indianapolis last week, and he absolutely just scalded everybody.
Yeah.
But the Patriots did not look good unless your name's Kayshon Boutte. He was great in LSU. But, man, they still don't have a bunch of nothing over there yet. This is a big rebuild going on in New England. But I think Miami's getting the points here because they're the home team. Sure. And I think that, whenever a team looks like ass on national TV like this, the old betting theory, I don't want to say theory, but the old rule, I guess, the rule still applies, is when a team gets humiliated, teams overestimate how they're going to look the next week. And in this case, they're playing another garbage team, but if they were playing anybody else, they'd be dogs, and I'd be all over it. Yeah. But I think that they're going to correct what's going on in Miami offensively.
Yeah.
A reporter today gave Tyreek Hill some grief and said, "Are you going to get over 30 yards?" Because he hasn't had over a 30-yard reception in a full calendar year now. I think that this is a breakout game for the Dolphins. They've just got too many weapons offensively.
They do.
I don't think that Tua is going to poop the bed like he did last week because that was just craziness.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to divorce myself from what he is capable of because of what he was at Alabama. Yeah. Because I watched him play and throw so accurately and smoothly. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet. I mean, he's obviously had some injuries, but I think that the Dolphins can win this football game. Neither side would be a shock to who won. This is a noon kickoff that nobody's really going to be watching because they're both 0-1 and Miami looked really sloppy. But I think they got more upside. And in Dynasty and in fantasy and betting, that's what you're kind of looking for. Who's going to give you the better shot to win, make money, win my fantasy games? Give me the Dolphins here in this spot.
Absolutely. I know they did a players meeting on Tuesday, I believe. So I don't know if that's a good look or not. I don't know if they're trying to rally around.
In week 2, it's not a good look if you're doing it in week 2. If you're doing it in week 10, that's different. But week 2,
yeah. Well, they had a really bad – it just depends on what the topic was. So, like, if they're like, hey, we need to hold ourselves accountable and figure it out, week 1 was not it. If that's the source of it, then that's good. But if they're, like, basically going out there and just bad-mouthing all the coaching staff, which I know the coaching staff hasn't been great, that's definitely not a good look. So, let's go ahead and move on to the start sits here. So – I do like Drake May versus this Miami Dolphins team. I thought he had an okay week 1 showing. It just seems like he's just a 250, 1 touchdown, 1 pick guy, and then sometimes gets the rushing touchdown. Need to see a little bit of elevation from Drake May, and I really hope that the Patriots can bounce back. So we'll see. Next up, we have Travion Henderson. This guy had over 10 fantasy points with 5 carries. He had 5 carries for 27 yards, and then he had 6 catches as well. Drake May likes this guy as a safety blanket. And, Ramondre Stevenson did not look good whatsoever. He had, I think, 1.7 yards a carry or something crazy like that. I think Travion's going to get a little bit more carries every single week, increasing. I love Travion Henderson. He's one of my favorite players in the class. Definitely starting him every single week until he proves me otherwise. I think that's his floor. He had poor offensive performance. He still had over 10 points. Kayshon Boutte. Look, at some point, we're going to have to start starting this guy, okay? Because last year, he had stretches of play where he'd have 80, 90 yards, over and over again. And it's like Drake May's number 1 target. Look, I get it. Stephon Diggs is the number 1, but Boutte has kept doing it over and over and over. At some point, you have to start it. I know he's got an 8-point projection or something right now. I'm starting him in my flex if I don't have somebody that's 11 points or higher. I liked Kayshon Boutte. He's an explosive play waiting to happen. Next up, Devon Achane. I was not 100% sure if he was going to play fully healthy. he looked really good. He burst off a couple of big-time runs here and there, and outside of that, I mean, he had a couple of catches as well, and he was kind of like the lone bright spot in this Dolphins offense in week 1. And then last but not least, Tyreek Hill. Look, he led the team in targets in week 1. He led the team in yards in week 1. I think he's still going to be the only guy. I like Waddle as well, but Tyreek, he's got enough explosive upside that I'm going to start him until he really shows me that he's not it anymore. Then for the sits, Tua, he had a really bad week 1. And I mean, really bad. I mean, going into the second half, he had negative points. I have to stay away from him for now. I know he's got a ton of accuracy upside, and the offense has the ceiling to really pop off. But for me, that really turned me off. I'm starting other guys over him, and I'll keep him in my QB3 slot for now until he shows me that he can have a big game and bounce back from this and get a little bit momentum going. Then Jalen Waddle. I like Jalen Waddle, but it seems like every single week he's coming off the field for something, for an extended amount of time. Every single week. I had him last year in fantasy. I own him in a couple of Dynasty leagues. It's just every single week he'll get hurt and then stay out a couple of quarters. And I need some more consistency in terms of durability from him. And the offense isn't really firing on all cylinders. Of course, he can get a 70-yard bomb out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden he's relevant. But for me, Waddle is just not consistent enough for me to start every week right now. Ramondre, kind of talked about him a little bit. Not a fan right now. Did not look good in week 1. I think Travion takes his job by like week 6. Hunter Henry, I know he's always been fairly consistent with Drake May. I think there's way better tight end options right now. And then last but not least, Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, he had an okay day week 1 against Drake May, but Drake May just loves Kayshon Boutte, man. He loves some booty. That's what he does. That's what he's going to continue to do. Look, I ain't faulting the guy. So right. For now,
Stephon Diggs, you got to get more of it.
Because he didn't look particularly good coming off the ACL injury. So Drake May and Boutte are the guys that I'm sticking with in this offense. Stephon Diggs is a fade for me right now.
Hey, if you can stick it in the Boutte, that's what you got to do and get
those
points.
You got to. He's reliable, man.
That's how you score.
That's how you score.
But I would say
every time.
I would say that there's 2 things I disagree with on your list here. I would start Tua because, like I said, I think last week was such an abomination. I think he's going to go out and pull – like this is me speculating and predicting here more so than the analytical aspect of it. But I think Tua is going to go out there and have an electric game and rip this team a new ass. I do. I just think that if you play that lousy and that sloppy and you're not injured –
you got 2 options.
Pick himself up. And I also disagree with you about Ramondre and Travion. I know that, like you said, he scored all those points, but this is where we disagree. People forget they extended Ramondre Stevenson on that deal, and he's going to get the carries. He out-carried him substantially in week 1. I don't think that either one of these teams are going to have rotten performances like they had last week. And I think that Ramondre will still – I would sit him. I would sit both those Patriots backs this week because I wouldn't know which one to play. But I would still take Ramondre until he loses that job because there's a reason that they extend him. There's a reason why he's just going to get the volume. And until they're taking that away, like you said, wait till week 6. Because we can't expect TreVeyon Henderson to maintain his breakneck speed, in my opinion. There's a reason you're not starting the job right away. There's a reason you were drafted high, but it's just not – for me, it's not time. But Tua, I think, is a play. Tua is a play this week.
All right. Moving on to the next game. The Jaguars going on the road to Cincinnati, playing against the Bengals. Bengals, poor week 1 showing. They got out of Cleveland just barely.
5 total yards in the second half.
5 total yards? I did not know that. That's insane. The Jaguars, I mean, I will say offensively they looked okay, but it was kind of like a blowout win where they just kind of ran the clock out in the second half. So
let's talk about both those things. First of all, I said at the beginning of the season that the Cleveland Browns were a quarterback away.
Yeah.
The defense absolutely held that offense in check.
Yep.
They did. They held them in check, but Joe Flacco is just not going to get it done for the Browns. It's going to be really hard, but they've got the Quinshot. We'll go over the Browns later, but I called this before the season that the Browns are just a quarterback away. And Deshaun Watson, by the way, I'm seeing reps of him. It looks like he might be back sooner than people like to say.
Yeah, for sure.
But the Jaguars game, I'm also going to kind of wash my hands of it because that game got delayed twice due to weather. So I'm not sure we can get a full picture of what exactly went on there. Exactly. I mean, they made Bryce Young look foolish, but Trevor Lawrence hasn't exactly proven it to me either.
Yeah, he was up and down week 1 for sure. I like you said, the weather delays kind of can take people out of their rhythm. Sure.
Yes. And neither team was exactly doing great until they came back from the second delay. Not a big fan of lightning delays. I know that people would think I'm crazy for that, but I'll have a rant at the end of this video about some new stadiums being built and what my take is on that. But nonetheless, this is a matchup here where the Bengals 3.5 at home. It's a really risky line, but Joe Burrow and I think the home opener, I think that they're going to be able to get some things squared away. The Jaguars got a little pressure off them by winning that first game.
Absolutely.
But there's great offensive matchups everywhere with these teams because neither one of them have elite defenders. I mean, the Jaguars got good players up front though.
And the Bengals have no one. They have Hendrickson, and that is it. I know they got Jamar Stewart
and Hines Allen and I don't even know how you pronounce the name. Foyesade.
Oluokun.
Your what hurts? Nonetheless, I think that this is a pretty solid matchup. I'm looking forward to this, watching it because the Packers already did their business and won. So I'm red zoning it all day on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to catching some glimpses into these kind of games here.
So, look, they always start slow. For the past 3 years now, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are just slow starters. Why? I don't know. But Joe Burrow, I'm insane to not start with how he played last year. I think he'll figure it out. He'll be somewhat relevant this week versus the Jaguars because they don't have the best defense. And Jamar Chase, if Joe Burrow's cooking, Jamar Chase is cooking too. That just is what it is. I like T. Higgins as well. I know he's not on here. He's like a borderline start for me, but Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase must starts for me versus the Jaguars. Brian Thomas Jr., a guy that if he didn't get that rushing touchdown, he probably would have been one of the biggest busts in week 1. But Brian Thomas Jr., he's one big play, one big, play away from being relevant. And I still think he's going to get a decent amount of targets. I think he had like 7 targets in week 1, only had 2 catches or 1 catch or something like that. So he still had got the targets and the looks. They just, like you said, the rhythm gets messed up because of the weather delays. Wash your hands of it. I think Brian Thomas can have a big-time uptick in week 2. Same with Travis Hunter. He actually led this team in targets in week 1. Now, we'll say he didn't put up a ton on the stat sheet, about 30 yards or so off 5 or 6 catches. But I did like on film what Travis Hunter was showing. So overall, I think Travis Hunter, he got missed a couple of times by Trevor Lawrence. I think Travis Hunter is a start for me in my flex a lot of the times. And then Travis Etienne, a guy who I had a lot of doubts about week 1 because he had a bunch of injury concerns. Efficiency just went down and down every single year. Well, he looked great. He had a 71-yard rush. Led all of the guys by a considerable margin in carries. You got week 1 where Ramondre had 7 carries to Travion's 5. Well, you have Travis Etienne who had like 18 carries, and the next best guy was like 4. So
before you get to your sits here, I want to talk about him. I know we're going through these a little bit faster, so we're not here 6 hours. But he is my favorite redraft late round league winner. Yeah, because everybody quit on this dude, and he starts out red hot, and I feel like he's in a contract year. I think that he's shown it. Yeah. He's absolutely RB2 last week after Derrick Henry.
And he has the pass catching upside. Now, I do want to talk one more thing. So, one thing about Travis Etienne, doesn't get touchdowns. Why does he not get touchdowns? Tank Bigsby exists. Well, he just got traded to the Eagles to be a punt returner. So, Travis Etienne is about to get all the goal line work because Bashul Tutin's a change of pace guy, not really good on the goal line. He wasn't.
You mean an Auburn player couldn't get the job done? Say it ain't so. It ain't so.
So Travis Etienne, one of my favorite backs to have on my team. Thank goodness I traded for him. I think I traded Lad McConkey for the 103 and Travis Etienne. after the playoffs last year. So love that. Travis Etienne, I had a ton of doubts about. He proved every one of his doubters wrong on week 1. I'm excited to see what he does against this terrible Cincinnati defense. And then for sits, Chase Brown, if he wouldn't have gotten that touchdown, he would have been one of the biggest week 1 busts as well. He had under 2.5 yards per carry. He didn't get that many targets as well. I know this Bengals offense didn't do very much offensively, but they couldn't run the ball with him. That was my biggest knock on him. He was not efficient last year. I mean, even regardless of what people want to say about his stats, he was not efficient last year. Got a bunch of nothing catches as well. I think he's just not a guy that I'm going to start unless I have to. And Mike Gesicki, he's a guy that I've said this last week. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to want to start unless one of the receivers are out. He's like the 3rd or 4th option in this offense. And it doesn't matter how explosive this offense is. If you're starting as the 3rd or 4th option in an offense, it's not good. Bashal Tutin, I think he's only relevant if he breaks off a big-time run. They got a guy named LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse. I do like LaQuint Allen a good bit. I was really, really impressed watching his film. I'm a big Kyle McCord guy, so I loved what I saw out of LaQuint Allen. But he's going to be used in the slot a little bit. He's going to get all the passing game work behind Travis Etienne. And Bashal Tutin's just a change of pace guy. I don't think he's going to get a ton of carries here. So sitting Bashal Tutin for now just doesn't give you enough upside. Brenton Strange, he had an impressive week 1 as well, but I think he needs to do a little bit more. Unless he's your starting tight end, I wouldn't start him over your guys that you've drafted before him in redraft. So keeping Brenton Strange on the bench for now. Then Trevor Lawrence, man. I really like Trevor Lawrence week 1 versus the Panthers. Obviously not the best defense. Didn't really do that much. Obviously the weather delays kind of messed things up a little bit. But I'm sitting Trevor Lawrence for now until, especially even against the Bengals defense, because he literally always comes up with a touchdown, a pick, like every single week. So he's got to show me a game where he has more than 2 touchdown passes, because I don't think he had a single game last year over 2 touchdown passes. I need something from him. And I need, whether it's rushing touchdowns or not, I need some touchdown upside from him. I'm staying away from him for now until he proves me otherwise. I was a big T-Law guy, but he's not getting the job done yet for me.
Yeah, sounds good. Trevor Lawrence, I think you could start him this week, but everything else I agree with.
Yeah, I think he's a QB3, and if you have worse options, obviously, if your QB3 is like Bryce Young or Geno Smith, I'm starting him over guys like those. I'm starting him over. So next up, we're going to talk about another matchup. The 49ers, they are missing a couple letters. They're the 49er or something. They're missing a ton.
They're the 49 IRs. The
49 IRs for sure. They're going on the road to play what a lot of people think is the worst team in the NFL, the New Orleans Saints. But I kind of liked a little bit of what I saw on tape from Spencer Rattler and this Saints team offensively and defensively. They're not good, but they're definitely not as bad as people were expecting them to be. And the 49ers, they're starting not starting Brock Purdy this weekend. They're starting Mac Jones, former Alabama alumni. So I do like Mac Jones a little bit here, but I don't know about the line. This could easily be a loss for them. I hope Mac Jones has a grasp on the offense, but I don't know how. I don't know. I'm staying away from this line. The 49ers have all the talent in the world. It's just they're always hurt.
Well, I don't think the Saints have an answer for Christian McCaffrey. I think he's going to get a massive
I hope
amount
so.
of work. It's just a massive amount of work because Kittle's out. Their wide receivers are banged up. Yep. Their backup quarterback's in the game. They don't have Jordan Mason back there. It's going to be the C-Mac show, and I love Mac Jones. I think the Patriots failed him. I mean, in his first season there, when he had co-offensive coordinators, he went to the playoffs with that team. And I think it's always kind of restrained him. I think that he was the right pick for the 49ers instead of Trey Lance. So I am intrigued to see how he does in this offense for the 49ers. But I do think
Were they the same draft class?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
I for whatever reason, I feel like Trey Lance was drafted 2 seasons ago. Like, this is insane because he's still only like 23, 24 years old, right?
Same class.
Yeah.
Same class, and he was picked, and then what's his name was also picked right after him. Fields was picked in that draft, and then Mac Jones went later. But nonetheless, when it comes to Mac Jones, I mean, he's got the leadership skills. He's clearly a backup right now. I think this could be a Sam Darnold situation with him, where he can pick up on another team maybe in the future, because Brock Purdy isn't going anywhere with this contract. But I think he's got an opportunity here to kind of resurrect who he is. And it's not Bama bias. You just saw it when he was there, won a national championship, won the last one for Saban, takes the Patriots to the playoffs after Tom Brady goes down to Tampa Bay. So he's a veteran. They're lucky to have him to go in there and start the game. And I don't think that the Saints defensively have anything that they can compete with to keep up with the 49ers. But offensively, I think that they can get a few mismatches, but I like Fred Warner better. I just think the 49ers have a better roster altogether to take care of business down there in New Orleans. But I agree with you. I don't think the Saints are going to be running around like chickens with their head cut off. I think it's a competitive football game, and I think the line is ideally matched due to the 49ers injuries. If they're not hurt, I bet you this is a 7-point line instead of a 3.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and look at the start sits. So Brock Purdy, obviously a sit. We'll talk about that in a moment. But Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he led this team by a landslide in carries in week 1, had a ton of catches, almost 100 yards receiving. Almost led the team if Ricky Pearsall wouldn't have caught a bunch of big-time 40-yard catches. But Christian McCaffrey must start. I think he's got RB1 upside pretty much the whole season as long as he stays healthy. Ricky Pearsall, a guy that I've been preaching about all offseason long. I think he's the wide receiver 1 for this team. He's going to continue to be the wide receiver 1 for this team until even when Ayuk comes back. So, like Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, I think, is healthy enough now to where he can be somewhat relevant. Like you said, with Mac Jones there, I do think he's going to sling it a little bit more than people are expecting. I do think there's going to be a solid day from these two receivers. And then Alvin Kamara. I think, the biggest weakness from this San Francisco 49ers team is they are very inexperienced in the defensive trenches on the defensive line outside of Nick Bosa, of course. I think Alvin Kamara can have a solid day running the ball, and he'll also catch a few passes as well, as he always does. Didn't really get a ton of catches week 1, but I do think Alvin Kamara will have another solid week, and he's still a guy that I'm starting in my RB2 slot pretty much any given week until he gets hurt. And Chris Olave. Chris Olave led this team in targets. I think he's able, as long as he stays healthy and doesn't get popped. Shout out Will Johnson, by the way. I said he was going to be the defensive rookie of the year. He's looking fantastic thus far for the Cardinals. But I do think Chris Olave is going to be fantasy relevant this week as well in this matchup, because it's going to be a bad game script for them. I think they're going to throw the ball a decent amount. And for whatever reason, Spencer Rattler, we'll go to our sits. Spencer Rattler, for whatever reason, when he's playing, they're asking him to throw the ball 30, 40 times every single game. And he's not making that many mistakes. He's taking what the defense is giving him. And unfortunately, the offense just doesn't have the talent right now to really be explosive. And with Spencer Rattler, I think he's just got to show me something before I feel comfortable even thinking about starting him. I don't think he's the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now. I think he offers some explosive upside, but he's got to have his playmakers do some work for him. Rashid Shaheed, he's a guy that just doesn't really offer you much outside of one big catch. I'm staying away from him for now. And Juwan Johnson, I'm not really buying into Juwan Johnson right now. I know he had a bunch of catches week 1, but he's a product. You think so? For me, I'm not starting him if he's on your roster, he's not your tight end 1. So pretty much any tight end 1 that's on your roster, I'm taking over Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson, he is a safety blanket for Spencer Rattler. I just don't envision Spencer Rattler throwing the ball that many times in week 2. I think this game's more competitive than week 1, and I do think they'll run the ball a little bit more with Kendre and Alvin Kamara, and they're not going to be as many, because the 49ers are also going to run the clock out a lot because of Christian McCaffrey. So Juwan Johnson, I don't think he's going to get the same amount of touches as he did in week 1. So that's why I fade him a little bit. Obviously, Brock Purdy's a sit. I'd probably lean Mac Jones as well. I like Mac Jones, but we need to see it because last year he wasn't the best at times. He played for the Jaguars last year, right? So he wasn't. I saw his statistics. He wasn't doing much of anything certain weeks. So he'd just have to wait and see. And then Brian Robinson, he had 8 touches, I think, in week 1. He's only going to be relevant if he gets a touchdown, and I don't think they're giving Brian Robinson Jr. touches on the goal line over Christian McCaffrey. It just is what it is. But outside of that, outside of the Juwan one, anything that you would disagree with?
No, just that I'd flip Juwan Jennings for Juwan Johnson.
That's fair.
I'll never buy into Juwan Jennings. I just can't. I've never seen this dude really go off unless he's the first option after 70 people are hurt. And I still think there's better options than him out there. But Juwan Johnson had a good week 1 as far as just fantasy points altogether, and he was one of the top 5 tight ends. It's one of the top 5 tight ends, and I think that's where they like to go with this offense first. I think he's their option over Olave, not Kamara, but I think that you can still get a decent amount of points to keep you in games. I don't think he's necessarily a sit. Like you said, I know that there are better names out there that people like, but there are. I think Juwan Johnson, you could start him this week and be just fine.
Hey, he's paid. They paid him in the offseason a lot more money than I thought. I was like, obviously I know who Juwan Johnson is, but I was like, they paid who that much money? They paid him a lot of money in the offseason.
And he's been winning people in the Saints organization fantasy football match.
So we'll go ahead and get into the next. We'll go ahead and get to the next thing here. The Browns going on the road in Baltimore to play the Ravens. The Ravens are a minus 11.5 point favorites. Now, guys, the Browns have an offensive problem for sure. The quarterback position is a little sketchy right now, but they still move the ball okay outside of a couple of picks from Joe Flacco. I think Judkins is going to come back and play this week a decent amount, maybe not a full snap share, but I think he will be playing this week out of all the things that I've heard thus far. And I don't like any line that is this big. In the NFL, I think the Ravens have the best roster in football, but when there's lines that are this inflated, over 10 points, I feel like I can never take those lines.
Well, I love Cleveland getting the points here.
Me too. I mean, anything that's over 10 points, I can't.
Judkins is not on a snap count. They've said he's not on a snap count. He's not on a hold. He is practiced. He will be as needed for the Cleveland Browns. I think that Jerome Ford, his best days are already kind of a little bit behind him. He was giving up carries to Dylan Sampson. He was giving up a touchdown to Sanders. I think Jerome Ford's going to be the odd man out, which pains me to say, as another former Crimson Tide running back who transferred to Cincinnati. But I really did like him. But I think that the Ravens are going to come out with something to prove, but they gave up 40-something points. You've got to look at those things. And I know the Browns ain't exactly electric, but I think that the Browns are going to run the football. They're just going to run it at them because I think they realized last week that with Joe Flacco, they might be swallowing their pride a little bit. I just think that this game's a rivalry game. Obviously, it's a rivalry game in this division. It's going to be a beautiful day in Baltimore. Maybe Baltimore goes out and puts belt to ass and beats them by 30. Wouldn't be surprising, but I'm taking the points for a betting spread here because defensively, the Browns are a great football team. They showed it last week against one of the most electric offenses in the NFL. They should have won the game. They should have won the game last week. And I know the Ravens are reeling, and I'm not, I just think that this is way too many points. I think the line should be 7.
Yeah, so I agree. I agree with you fully there. But let's go ahead and talk about the offense, the starts and the sits here. So Zay Flowers, reigning wide receiver 1 right now. So Lamar Jackson, he's electric. You're starting him over pretty much every single quarterback not named Josh Allen. And in some weeks, I'd probably argue Lamar Jackson has more upside than Josh Allen. So thankfully, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks to start in fantasy every single week. And then Derrick Henry, dude, I don't know how he keeps doing it. He just keeps doing it. I never thought that Derrick Henry was going to slow down. He hasn't. He's going to continue to just be a monster every single week. And the Browns are going to have to figure out a way to stop this read option type of attack from Lamar and Derrick Henry. So love me some Derrick Henry this week. And Zay Flowers, look, Zay Flowers, he's the reigning wide receiver 1 thus far. He had a great week 1. I know he's streaky at times. He'll have some big boom games here and there. But, man, Zay Flowers, I'm still starting him for now in my flex spot because, dude, he just had a great game week 1. He's the leading guy in this offense in terms of passing. So I think this game will be somewhat competitive, and I think Zay Flowers is going to get some targets for sure. Jerry Jeudy, Browns. He didn't get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. I haven't seen anything about that thus far.
Yeah, I'm just checking. Philly Mike is just screwing with us. Appreciate you, Philly Mike.
Philly Mike.
We're gonna fact check your ass if you say stuff like this in the chat. Doesn't matter who you are. So
Jerry Jeudy, he had a great week 1 as well. I think he's continuing to be this consistent option for us. There's not many other guys in this offense. I know Cedric Tillman is a guy people like. Jerry Jeudy with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is going to throw the ball a ton, so I do like Jerry Jeudy. And then there's a guy. Here's a guy, okay, Harold Fannin Jr., tight end with quotations around it. Harold Fannin Jr. was one of my favorite guys in college football last year coming out of Bowling Green, and he proved it. He tied the record for receptions in a rookie debut for a tight end with 7, and he was lined up everywhere. He took wildcat snaps. He was lined up in the slot out wide. They use him like a wide receiver because they have Njoku. So Harold Fannin Jr., I think you remember Marcus Colston when he came in? He was technically a tight end. I see very similar things, and he broke fantasy that year. I could see very similar things with Harold Fannin Jr. this year. That's how high I am on Harold Fannin Jr. Led college football last year in receptions and yards. This guy is a monster, and the Browns are already targeting him like he's the focal point of the offense. He led the entire Browns receiving core in yards per separation per route, and he led them in receptions and targets. So Harold Fannin Jr., a guy you need to keep your eye out on. If you can pick him up for a second in Dynasty, absolutely do it. Now for the sits. Got Joe Flacco. Guy is either going to throw 3 touchdowns and 3 picks or 1 touchdown and 2 picks. That's just what he does. He's just a guy that's going to get a ton of interceptions thrown, but he does have a ton of volume. I'm not starting him over pretty much any other quarterback this week because the Ravens are a tough defense to play. Dylan Sampson, I know he had like 10 catches for like 20 yards week 1. He had a ton of catches. He just was not efficient on the ground at all. I think that's kind of a bogus stat line. And with Judkins coming in, I just don't think he is worth starting right now. Same thing with Cedric Tillman. Outside of a touchdown upside from him, he's not a guy I'm starting right now. Cedric Tillman, any type of player, if your only upside is touchdowns, I'm probably not going to want to start you. And then David Njoku, I think he's kind of phased out of this offense a little bit. You know, he has durability issues already. I know he's healthy right now, but with Harold Fannin Jr., Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, all these guys, I feel like he kind of got buried a little bit in week 1. So David Njoku, guy that I'm staying away from unless he is your best option right now. Then last but not least, Mark Andrews. He just has too many games where he's just invisible. And he had that last year, and he's only good unless he catches a touchdown, which he does do that a lot, but I just don't know. It might be the time. This might be the year where he just doesn't get the touchdown upside. So staying away from Mark Andrews as well.
Good list. I like it in full.
Sweet. Look, we agree on full start sit.
Yep.
And we agreed on the line. But now we're going to take a break real quick and talk about our sponsor, Cut. One of the best betting platforms out there. For me, I live in a place where sports betting is illegal, and Cut is 100% legal in my state. I can bet on pretty much anything that I want, politics, sports, any sport, or anything. Literally, you can bet on anything, and it's really easy to get your wallet set up, deposit money. You can get a deposit bonus as well if you do certain criteria. I mean, I just love it. I've been killing it on there. People have all sorts of crazy lines that you can do and just take their money, man. So that's what I've been doing. Undefeated on Cut thus far. And if you guys want, during sign-up, you can use the code COVER2CASH, our referral code, and we'll get you hooked up. Anything you want to say about Cut, man?
Well, first of all, we're gracious grateful to Cut. The
Absolutely.
founder is in South Carolina. He caught a little bit of the stream last week. We're still trying to get somebody on the show. It's been a little difficult to get in touch with them, but we're gonna make this happen, I believe. But Cut is not just, it's like it says, social betting. It's not just sports betting. They've got blackjack up there. If you want to bet on current events, politics, anything, you can create your own bets on Cut. That's the one thing that I've learned. And if you can adjust the lines and you can wager. I don't know if you know this, Bobby, but like, let's say you want to do teasers and things along that to where you can inflate the lines where you'll risk a lot more and somebody else can take your bet and risk a lot less.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like a really unique function that Cut has. I think it's super innovative. This is going to eventually be
I want to say I saw there was a Dolphins line on there where the Dolphins were the dogs. They were like 4-point dogs.
Right.
So you could have taken the 4-point Dolphins dog line if you wanted.
Right. So if we look right now, there's a line for New Mexico and UCLA that's coming on here in a few minutes. And a lot of it's money line or over or under, but it'll say opponent bet $30, you bet $33, or things along those sorts. There's custom wagers that you can play and things along that sort. But they've got, like you said, they've got all kinds of bets on here. You got golf, soccer, entertainment, WWE if you're crazy enough to do that. Horses. I mean, horse racing is almost
anything really you can think of. It's everything.
Yep.
You can literally make your own bet that's prevalent to only you in your life, and you can have a friend and you bet on something.
And I'm currently, we have on X, I know Bobby's not participating in it, but shout out to the Data Man who got hooked up with us and the Juice Reel app. And we are doing a weekly NFL season-long bet line. And we pick 5 games each week for 5 units, or we bet 5 units each week, so you can spread that out. I only use the odds from the Cut app specifically because Cut is our sponsor, and they're the best book anyway. The VIG is so low, and I wanted to just show you guys here, give an update on it, if you will. We have. Give me just a moment here while I pull this up. My apologies, y'all. I'm going to sign in here and show you guys something that's great about the Cut bet. While we're waiting, Bobby, you got any other fantasy or anything you want to fill in with time here for just a moment?
Absolutely. So for a couple of games tomorrow, we'll be talking about some college games, but there's a couple of games that I kind of like this weekend. So I know Tulane, they're playing Duke tomorrow, and they are playing at home. So Tulane is 1.5 point favorites. I like that line a good bit. Tulane, if you guys want to take that bet, I think they're solid options this weekend. And there's another one as well. Kansas State's playing right now, right?
Yeah, it's not looking good. They're down 7-3 from what I see, but perfect time, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull this off of here.
Arizona.
I'm going to show you guys my screen here for just a moment. And I'm going to show this tab right here. You guys can see this?
Yes, we can.
All right, so this is our best on X. It's brought to you by Cut and the Juice Reel app, as you can see right here. And what we do is week 1, we have made our wagers. And right now, if you can see, I am currently in second place. And lifetime total, I am up 18.4 units. These are some of the absolute best sports betting accounts on X. I know Guardian Capper and Blackbeard and CO Minion, and my boy Eric is on here. Where is he at? He's somewhere around here. Yeah, right here. Etoft, I've been on his show. Shout out to Eric. And the VIP Minion, the Wingman. These are all where we're at, but it's a season-long bet, and I happen to go really well in my first week. I picked 5 games and got all 5 of them right. So
look at that. Dude, we killed it last week. Killed it last week on the spreads, man. Just killed it. Dude,
Beta Man is our guy. This is the guy that's kind of running it. So we shout out Juice Reel for helping out, but I just wanted to put that on there for everybody to see.
Just before we move on, if you guys see any bets on cut, you see Bobby's big board, and we have a bet on there, and you see that. If you lose to me, I just want you to know there's going to be a message in your inbox. Okay, so you need to be hesitant before you bet me, but I want y'all to give it back to me too if I lose. So, but we'll go on to the next line here. We got the Chicago Bears going on the road against the Detroit Lions. Both teams had rough week one showings. More so the Lions, in my opinion. I thought the Bears looked good in the first half, then they kind of fell apart in the second half after the defense made a few adjustments. But the Lions, they looked really poor for the most part. But the Lions are favored plus 6.5. Makes sense. Ben Johnson gets his revenge game. I think they left on decent terms, but Ben Johnson, he gets to play his former team in the Detroit Lions. They are 6.5 point favorites. I love the Chicago Bears. I was hoping they'd pull the win in week one, but couldn't get it done. How do you feel about this line? Do you think the Lions take this one?
Well, as a Packers fan, I spit in both these teams' general directions, but I'm not going to base everything off what I saw last week because I saw one team just get dominated for a whole game, and I saw another that just had a collapse.
Yep.
And I don't think that J.J. McCarthy is exactly what was advertised. I think that this was a mistake-ridden game by Chicago last week. They do have the shorter week, but traveling from Chicago to Detroit's nothing. I mean, it's a 30-minute flight. It really is next to nothing. So it's not like they have to go far. They lose a day of prep. But I think that there is big problems with play calling in Detroit. I think that Ben Johnson's going to have the crew fired up for this game. I think that they're sore in the ass from how they lost that game. I don't think that the Lions, the Lions can give them fits, though. I don't think Gibbs is going to be held for 10 catches for 20 yards again. That's insane.
I think that's the lowest line. That's the lowest amount of yards from a 10-catch game ever.
And the Bears don't have a Micah Parsons, and the Lions do have a Hutch. But Hutch was absolutely ineffective last week. Yeah. So we got to see more. So I'm going to I like points in this game strictly because there just is a little bit more of a Ben Johnson factor. He's going to really want this one.
Yeah.
And it's going to be – I'm curious to see if that plays out. Let's just say the Bears win the football game. You're 0-2 if you're Detroit. Does it start to – I'm not saying the seat's hot or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
But what kind of precedent does that – are they going to be able to turn this around? Because the Lions have an absolutely brutal schedule this season.
They do.
I mean, that's part of the price that you pay when you win 15 games. I mean, just looking ahead to their next few games, they host Cleveland. I'm sorry. They host the Ravens. I'm sorry again. They're at Baltimore.
That's
host
really
the
tough.
Browns. At Cincy, host Kansas City, or at Kansas City, and then host Tampa Bay. So it's not. There's nothing.
All those teams are playoff teams outside of the Browns, and Browns are a sneaky playoff team. So the Lions. I mean, that's really tough schedule, man. Especially going on to Arrowhead Stadium, regardless of what people feel about the Chiefs Week 1. Look, going to Arrowhead is just not a fun place to go to if you're anyone else. So definitely think the Lions, they need this to avoid 0-2, but the Bears need it too. The Bears they were hyped up. They want to get to the playoffs this year. So both of these teams I think are in similar spots because I know Ben Johnson, he won't get ousted out of there after one season, of course, but yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, he looked really good at times, and then other times he was missing some throws, so he's going to have to hone that in and try to get warmed up. Week 1 is always all over the place, so I'm interested to see how this is. This is a line I might stay away from, but I do love the Bears in this game for the most part, but the Lions, they just have so much talent. So let's go ahead and start with the start sits. Look, Caleb Williams, he had a rough game in Week 1. Still put up over 26 fantasy points in 6 passing touchdown leagues. Also got his first rushing touchdown. I imagine there's going to be a much more of those. He was moving around the field like a magician all game last week. So love Caleb Williams versus this Lions defense because they really didn't look like a great defense in Week 1. DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, I think Caleb Williams will sling the rock a good bit. I think there's going to be a back and forth game where the running running is not going to be a focal point of either offense, I think, because of how explosive these teams are going to have to play to keep up with each other. So I think DJ Moore and Rome Odunze are both going to be very fantasy relevant this week. And Jahmyr Gibbs, I know I said running is not going to be a focal point. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a problem. I mean, he's going to be a problem every single week, I think. Last week he didn't have the best game, but he still had 10 catches. So Jahmyr Gibbs, he's an auto start pretty much every single week unless he's hurt. Same thing with Amon-Ra. He didn't have the best week one showing either, I know, because I own him, but in a lot of leagues. But Amon-Ra, I think he's going to have a bounce-back game. I know the Bears were without Jalen Johnson week one. I think he should be back this week, so he'll probably be lined up on Amon-Ra a decent amount of the time. So we'll see. I think Amon-Ra is in for a big-time game. And then Jared Goff. Look, Jared Goff, he has more touchdown passes in the past 4 years than any other quarterback in the NFL. So Jared Goff, he's had a ton of big-time games. He did not look good last week. He just didn't. And I need to see some consistency from him. And if he's not firing Jameson Williams, I liked him at Alabama. If Jared Goff's not firing, Jameson Williams isn't going to be firing either. In week one, I kind of said, hey, sit Jameson Williams because Ben Johnson schemed him a lot. It got a lot of trick plays for Jameson Williams, and those weren't there. And Jameson Williams paid the price for that, didn't get pretty much anything going in week one. So curious to see how he bounces back from that. But for now, I'm sitting Jameson Williams. And David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, like I said, I think this is not going to be a run-heavy game. And David Montgomery is only relevant if he gets a touchdown. And I still think he's got a little bit of juice to him. But with Jahmyr Gibbs, he's getting all the high-value touches. DeAndre Swift didn't look particularly good in week one. I'm off of him for right now. Like I said, again, it's not a big run-heavy game, I don't think. So I'm sitting DeAndre Swift. And Colston Loveland, I was a little surprised by how little they got him engaged in week one. He only had, I think, 2 targets. So keeping him away for now until he gets a little bit more integrated into the offense. Any thoughts on these guys?
I think you can pretty much start.
Uh-oh. We lost him. That's okay. He'll be back in just a moment. Y'all stay with us. But, yeah, just one more quick little thought about Jameson Williams. Like I said, ton of schemed touches last year where you get him in space. I mean, he's just a monster. So, welcome back, sir.
That's all right. But I think that you can start pretty much everybody that's not named Loveland on that list.
Yeah.
Jameson Williams has got that extension, so that kind of helps. But nonetheless, I think that they're going to be okay. Oh man, we lagged out a bunch of our viewers too. That's unfortunate.
No. We're still there. When you lag out, all the viewers go with you.
It says 2 on my end.
Yeah, I got 12 on my end, so we're good.
Okay,
we're good. Yeah, we're still good.
Okay, I think that Colston Loveland, they just got to get him in there. But everybody else, I think he can play. Because I'm just not impressed with the Bears defense. I think the Lions can do pretty well. Just with the Packers defense, it shut it down. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game. We got the Denver Broncos going on the road to Indianapolis against the Colts. Denver is only 1.5-point favorites. I love the Denver Broncos here, even though the offense wasn't amazingly in week one. I think they bounced back, and I just don't believe in the Colts right now. I think that was a crazy win in week one. Danny Dimes streaked really hard. I don't think he does that against Denver in week two. But how are your thoughts on this game? I love the Broncos line here.
Well, I think what happened was maybe there's a reason the Colts start Daniel Jones. Maybe he really was just not the right fit up there for Brian Daboll and wasn't the fit in Minnesota. I mean, the Colts looked really, really good last week. I mean, granted, they played Miami, who absolutely gave them the football on a handful of occasions and things along those sorts. But Denver's offense last week looked absolutely putrid at home. It looked really bad. There was some severe regression going on there. I'm not a RJ Harvey believer, so it's hard for me to get behind any of the Broncos' offensive weapons, any of them. Mims, Franklin, Sutton. I don't care for their tight ends. I don't care for their backfield. I thought that they had a freshman run last year. I see regression in Denver, but they do have Pat Surtain, who's just who needs to be a Green Bay Packer. We need to get him in Green Bay by when the Broncos are 2-7 this year and they want to send it at the deadline. You can send them to Green Bay. We got something we can send in return for Surtain to get us into that Super Bowl. But nonetheless, I know I'm just saying, but I think he's the only.
What first?
That pass rusher is pretty good for Denver. His name's escaping me at the moment. But I think the line is it's really close. I think the Colts win this game and they start out 2-0 and shocks the world here.
Really?
Well, like I said, we saw Daniel Jones play really good football. And sometimes it's just a change of scenery. I mean, look at what happened with Sam Darnold. Yeah. You know, he goes in there in Minnesota and has an ideal situation for him. The coach has backed him and said, you're the starter for the whole season, so he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. He doesn't have this major market like New York in Indianapolis. You know, I think that the Colts win this game. I like the Colts money line here.
We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm just reading too much into last year where the Broncos were just amazing all throughout the year. They haven't lost much, so we'll talk about some start sits here. So do like Bo Nix in this game. The defense for the Colts hasn't been great. They haven't added much. They get a ton of tackles. They give up completions a lot. I like Bo Nix here. I think he's going to get in rhythm, and this short game's really going to start working. Like Courtland Sutton as well. He gets a ton of targets, usually gets a touchdown every single week. So I do like Courtland Sutton here. And then R.J. Harvey. You know, he was really efficient in week 1, busted off a big-time run, and he's got that upside at any given play. He kind of reminds me of Gibbs in some ways where you just get this kid the ball in space and he will literally make magic happen. So I love R.J. Harvey against the Colts here, especially with how they play defense. But then, been calling this all offseason, Tyler Warren might finish as the tight end 1 as a rookie. We might have back-to-back tight end 1s on the season that are rookies. Tyler Warren, he led the entire team in targets and catches in week 1. Tyler Warren is just a guy that they're getting in space. They're just trying to get him the ball in as many different ways as possible. Shane Steichen is going to be creative with this guy. They got him a couple of carries as well in week 1. Bunch of different looks. He gets used all over the place. Kind of same sort of deal as Harold Fannin Jr., but Tyler Warren does block a little bit. He is an inline tight end at times. Harold Fannin Jr., he's just literally a bona fide wide receiver at the tight end slot. So I do love Tyler Warren in this game. Jonathan Taylor as well. He's a guy that's going to get a ton of carries. There's nobody really behind him. I know Giddens got a bunch of carries in week 1, but that was because they were blowing out the Dolphins. I think Jonathan Taylor gets 80-90% of the carries. Daniel Jones. Look, it's one game. I need to see more from him. I need to see more from Daniel Jones before I start feeling confident in him again. I'm sitting him against one of the best defenses in football, at least for this week. I would sell high on Daniel Jones, in my opinion. I've seen it too many times. Week 1, kids just go crazy. Michael Pittman Jr., he had a great day in week 1, but I just don't believe in these receivers right now because I think Daniel Jones is not going to have a very good game. So same kind of argument for Josh Downs here. Then Evan Ingram. I like Evan Ingram, but he's been hurt all week throughout practice, so I don't know how much he's going to play this week. I know they say he's healthy, but I don't know. I'm sitting him for now unless I don't have any other options. And then Marvin Mims, he's the last guy I'll talk about here. He's a streaky guy. He's going to get you a big-time catch here and there, or he's not going to do much of anything. He's a boom or bust type of wide receiver, and there's more consistent options out there.
I'm not starting a single Bronco, but I'm starting Tyler Warren, I'm starting Taylor, and I'm starting Daniel Jones. The rest of the guys can ride the bench. It's that simple. It's just because Daniel Jones played a complete football game.
Yeah,
and
yes, he did.
I mean, it was a tell for me. It was a tell for me for a guy who's been completely written off. Everybody was absolutely shocked that he had taken the job from Anthony Richardson. But the coaches evidently know what's going on. This is year 3 for this coaching staff. And usually if you don't make the postseason in year 3, usually you're canned. And Daniel Jones has that rushing upside and can make plays. And he didn't turn the ball over. You know, he showed why he was a first-round draft pick in that first game. And they're at home. Denver really looked bad. I mean, defensively, they're a sound football team. I mean, everybody loves Sean Payton and what the Broncos can do, but I just trust Daniel Jones and Tyler Moore, and I definitely just trust Jonathan Taylor more than anybody in Denver's backfield by a metric mile.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you pay players like Jonathan Taylor. So,
yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll go on to the next game here. The Panthers at the Arizona Cardinals. The Panthers looked horrible in week 1 outside of McMillan and Chuba. The Cardinals actually looked solid on offense. So Arizona -7, I think that's a respectable line. I probably stay away from this game, though.
Yeah, when it comes to that line's perfect. Yeah. Here's the thing. So we really can't get a full grasp on the Panthers because of the weather delays and stuff like that, like we talked about last week. But we did see defensively the Cardinals played a really sound football game. Now, a lot of people can dismiss it because it was the Saints. But nonetheless, they still got the job done. They're at home. And I think we're starting to see Marvin Harrison blossom. We see Trey McBride. We see James Conner still moving the football. We've got Paris Jones on the left side blocking. We got that corner, Will Howard. I mean, they've got playmakers on defense. Yeah. What's his name?
Will Johnson.
Will Johnson. I'm sorry, Will Johnson.
He's a Michigan Wolverine. I don't expect you to know him anyways.
Well, no, I mean, I just got it mixed up. But
yeah,
nonetheless, I think the Cardinals, like I said, are trending up. If the 49ers get one more injury, I'm really thinking that this is the NFC West champ.
I mean, they look great. They look better than the 49ers week 1, and they were healthy.
They all right, so when they fired Steve Keim and when they fired their previous coach, it was an absolute – when Cliff, it was just an absolute wreck here. Kind of like what you're seeing in New Orleans, except Cardinals didn't have brutal cap space, but they had a bunch of old players. And they decided to tear it down and get their GM and get their coach and methodically rebuild this team. They traded that first-round pick to the Texans, so the Texans were able to get Will Anderson, and they had their extra first. They've drafted well. They've got depth. Kyler is fully healthy. I mean, you could see his energy when he's out there. He's still making plays. I mean, he's never going to get any taller, but I don't think that that's a hindrance to his game right now. I think he knows his ass is on the line, too, in spite of that contract. They'll move on from him if he doesn't get it done. I think, like I said, I think the Cardinals' this line is real tricky, but I do expect them to start 2-0, which doesn't happen in the desert very often.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's playoffs or bust for the Cardinals. If they miss the playoffs again, I think Kyler is going to another team in the offseason. So Kyler Murray, I think, is a start versus this Carolina Panthers defense. I think their defense is pretty poor. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a field day as well as the rest of the offense. I mean, I think anybody is going to be starting James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Trey McBride. I think all these guys are going to have a big day. They're going to score a decent amount of points. And they're going to be doing it. I think they're going to be doing it. And I think the only guy that I would really – Ted McMillan as a sit may be a little bit controversial. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I do like Chuba Hubbard as like the guy that's going to be able to get the majority of the carries. He's the only guy that's getting carries in this offense. So I do like him as a workhorse back. So starting him for sure. But for sits, Bryce Young, look, the defense looked great. Will Johnson looks really good. Bryce Young, I think, is going to struggle again, unfortunately. And we might see the red rifle again. I don't know. I just gotta see. I gotta see some consistencies from Bryce Young. He looked great at the end of last year, but right now he showed. I know the weather delays messed things up, but I mean he looked really poor throughout the whole game. He never really had a moment where he was like really, getting in his groove. So.
If you put Bryce Young on the bench, I'm just going to cut you off here. I'm sorry, but if you put Bryce Young on the bench, he can't start another game for this team. He's out.
Yep, I agree. Kind of like similar type of thing with Richardson, right? They're kind of like in similar boats right now. I don't think Richardson can start another game for the Colts, barring injury. So,
well, week 1 is not a tell fully.
Yeah,
it's just not. Exactly. I mean, it's a week-to-week league. We saw him finish strong again. I think that you have games that are anomalies. Sometimes you have shit games. Let's just see what you can do before you start pulling the on anybody in week 1.
Yeah.
I think pulling somebody in week 1 is crazy.
Yeah, I think he's on a really short leash, though, and I'm going to be sitting him for now until he can show me that he can be a consistent option. Same with Xavier Legette. I like him as a super athlete, but he's just a vertical X wide receiver that's going to offer you little to no upside week to week unless he gets a boom catch here and there. Ted McMillan, he did lead this team in targets and yards. Probably a start if you don't have any, if your receiver core is like average, but if you have any other options, I think this offense is really going to struggle versus Will Johnson and this Arizona Cardinals defense. So I don't know how good Ted McMillan's upside is going to be this week. And then JT Sanders, he's a guy that's just, I just don't know where he fits into this offense. He didn't get too many touches in week one. I was excited about him, but I mean, look, not everybody can get the targets. So, and then last but not least, I like Trey Benson. I thought he was really efficient, but James Conner, he just keeps continuing to show that, like, hey, I'm a consistent option until I get hurt. He will probably get hurt at some point, and then Trey Benson will go to the moon. So I think Trey Benson's a great hold right now, but for now, you cannot start.
Sounds good.
Sweet. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next game here, which is the Eagles going to Arrowhead Stadium to play the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are a little banged up. They lost Worthy. I don't think he plays this week. If he does, I don't know. The running game hasn't looked great. The Eagles didn't look that great either, considering, they were playing the Cowboys. They're terrible, right? So they didn't have the best week one showing. Neither one of these teams did. And I think the Chiefs get it done at Arrowhead. I don't think they can be as cute on offense with all the preset motions and stuff. For the Eagles, when they're in Arrowhead, they're going to have a tough time playing here. I think the Chiefs will come out and start 1-1, and we'll even things out with the Eagles.
Super spicy week 2 matchup, Super Bowl rematch.
Yeah.
This time it's in Arrowhead, but again, I just don't know who offensively scares the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, Worthy's out, Kelsey's 100, and then you've got Hollywood Brown, who's hot. I mean, I just can't buy into the Chiefs. Like I said, I felt last year that they were on a foundational crack. There is a real possibility here that they lose this game, and it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Jalen Hurts can be contained. He can be slowed down. I mean, that's always been his MO. He likes to make one read and then make a decision. He's deeply frustrating, though, in those short yardage situations with the push. But it is Pat Mahomes at home, and I think that, there is some leadership there and there is coaching. It's just this game can go either way. This is a absolute do not touch for me because of the line, because I can't figure out who I like more. Yeah. But if I was bet the board, I'm going to take the Chiefs at home if I was betting the board. I'm going to take the points for a home dog for a team that's in the Super Bowl and it's got Patrick Mahomes. It's almost suicide not to do something like that.
Yep.
Well, they come out, I think that they're a little annoyed with how their first game went.
Yep.
And Philadelphia really was lucky to get by Dallas. CeeDee Lamb had him beat.
Yep.
But, they got better secondary. I think the matchup on paper, Philadelphia's defense matches up pretty well to Kansas City's offense. And the other way around, the Chiefs' defense is going to have to just – Philly is so frustrating to play.
Yeah.
They've got A.J. Brown, and, they just got players. It's really hard to pick against the Eagles, but I think the Chiefs might – pull up the home upset here.
And my main argument for this is Mahomes has done it with worse receiving cores before. He won a Super Bowl with less. So I think he played phenomenally in week 1. He missed a couple throws early, but in the second half, he really started dialing in and making some plays. So I think that's going to continue into week 2, I'm hoping. Obviously, as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I got to go with the home team here. But we'll go ahead and look at the start sits here. So Patrick Mahomes, I think he's playing at a phenomenal level right now. He didn't play the best last year. I think he's bouncing back from that. I have Mahomes as a must start in this week versus the Eagles. And Travis Kelce, I think he's going to get a bunch of targets as he usually does. I think, and he had the touchdown last week. I think he's going to get more and more targets as the year goes on, and he's going to get that chemistry back with Mahomes. So I think those are the two guys that I'm comfortable starting right now, because we'll talk about the receiving core in a minute. But Then we have Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts played great. I mean, he didn't throw a lot downfield in week 1, but Hurts, he can get it done with his legs. He's not making any stupid mistakes. He's keeping the ball out of harm's way. Love Jalen Hurts, even against a good Kansas City Chiefs defense. Saquon Barkley, I think he's starting pretty much every single week, no matter what, even though the run defense for the Chiefs is very good. I still think he's going to come out and get a couple of good plays against us. Makes me feel weird. Dallas Goedert actually is not a guy that I'm going to start because he's actually out for this game. So he was just announced out a few hours ago, I believe. So Dallas Goedert, I'd probably switch him out with probably Devonta Smith because McDuffie's going to be on A.J. Brown. So instead of starting Dallas Goedert, I'd start Devonta Smith just because I feel like he is the more reliable target of the two, even though A.J. Brown offers you much more upside. Then on to the sits. I hate the Kansas City Chiefs running back room. I like Pacheco and what he brings in terms of his violence, his downhill running, but we just aren't blocking well enough with the running backs. I think our run blocking is just not where it needs to be right now. So Pacheco or any other running backs, Kareem Hunt, all those guys are sits for me. Hollywood Brown, I know he led the team in yards and catches in week 1. I just don't know if that's going to be a consistent thing. We got to see how this offense shapes up without Worthy and without Rashee Rice. So going to sit the receivers. I know Worthy might play. I don't think he does. If he does play with the brace, I'm definitely out on him that week because I just don't know how they're going to utilize him or if he's on a snap count. I don't know. So I'm staying away from the Kansas City Chiefs receivers. And then last but not least, A.J. Brown. He's a guy that he's going to be lined up against McDuffie, who's a great corner. And A.J. Brown just looks like he's a sacrificial X right now. So I'm staying away from him for the time being.
Yeah, it makes sense, especially when we're talking about fantasy points. Pretty good list here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard. I agree with your starts, but I don't know. I don't know about Kelsey against that defense, but I think that he's still a safe start until further notice.
Yep, for sure. And then next up, we're going to go ahead and do Falcons at Minnesota taking on the Vikings. Now, the Vikings, this is a trap game, I think. I think the Falcons might come in here and take this game because they looked decent. You know, they missed a field goal to send it to overtime in week 1. I think the Falcons have something. They have something, man. I don't know what it is. I know I'm close to Atlanta. The Falcons got something. I don't know what it is, but the Vikings, they started really bad versus the Bears. I mean, poor. And then they kind of turned it up second half. McCarthy looked okay. I know he has some rushing upside, but his stat line was way better than how he actually played, in my opinion, even though I like J.J. McCarthy. I might take the Falcons plus 3.5 here. I know Minnesota is at home, and it's a long way to go from Atlanta. I don't know, man. I just like what the Falcons put on tape week 1.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not going to get into too much detail because this one goes out behind my paywall. It is my play of the week. But I will say that it is an exciting matchup. I mean, there is I'm not a Vikings fan, as you can see with the hat that I'm wearing on my head. But there is something to be said about games that are played in that stadium. It is loud. Vikings fans are absolutely fanatical. They blow that horn. That third down horn is amazing. Not the first down horn, but that third down, like, low bass sound that they make is pretty cool, but not the get out of here with that. I can do without that. Nonetheless, but yeah, there's some matchups there's some mismatches that I see here that I really like in this game. Absolutely. It should be exciting. And I know that's kind of a short preview because this one goes behind my paywall. That's why you got to follow me on X at Justin Paul Sport with no S, because I will have these written up first thing Sunday morning. And this is definitely one of my favorite plays of the week. And if you just, my plays will be $5. My card is $5. I'll have a $5 college card tomorrow, and I have a $5 NFL card on Sunday. Not super expensive, totally reasonable to get some plays. My records are posted for full transparency. Win or lose, we take the credit when we win, and we take responsibility for when we lose. That's what I do here. I've been betting on sports since I was a kid, believe it or not, since 1990. When I was 11 years old, I learned how to bet and was making bets with my friends about stuff like that. And I've learned through many years of losing how to win. But now I'm a winner. See all this gray? Didn't happen overnight. So this is one of my favorite games of the week, though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go ahead and look at the start sit. So I like Michael Penix Jr. He doesn't offer you a ton with the rushing, but he did get a rushing touchdown in week 1. I liked how he was slinging it. So definitely think Michael Penix Jr. is a solid starter versus this Vikings defense. They let Caleb run a little wild on him in terms of fantasy points. So I think Michael Penix Jr. can do something similar. He's probably not going to be rushing against this defense that much. Bijan Robinson, he had, I want to say, 100 yards receiving. I know he had that one big catch for a touchdown, but definitely think he's going to have a bounce-back week in terms of his rushing numbers. He did not do great in terms of the rushing department week 1. I think he will bounce back. Regardless whether he has a good rushing performance or not, he always has the pass-catching upside. So I think he's a must-start. He's my favorite right now for the RB1 overall this season. And Drake London, I think he also offers you a ton of upside at receiver. He had a ton of targets in week 1, had a decent showing, not a great showing week 1. I think he will bounce back and have an even better performance versus this Minnesota Vikings defense. Even though the defense for the Vikings is solid, I still think the Falcons can do some damage here. Now, J.J. McCarthy, like I said, was not the best in week 1. He started off a little bit rough, but I do think he can do something against this defense, whether he's rushing the ball. I think they believe in him, and I think he's going to at least have a decent game for us. I think there's better options to start, but I do think I wouldn't feel bad starting J.J. McCarthy versus the Falcons. And then next up, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson had, I want to say, 12 points, 13 points week 1, and that was one of his worst performances in a while. 4 for 41 and a touchdown. I think he has a ton of big games in store. There's a reason why he leads all receivers in the history of the game in receiving yards per game. So I think he almost has 100 receiving yards per game, which is insane. Then for sits, I think the Vikings are basically going to run whoever's going hot. In week 1, it was Jordan Mason, but they did let Aaron Jones start for, the first 8 carries or so, and they just couldn't get him going. So they switched to Mason, and Mason was running. So I think this backfield is basically who's ever running hot, kind of like how Algier and Bijan was a couple of years ago. I think it's going to be similar to that. So for that, I don't want to flip a coin to see who's running hot. I'm just going to sit both of them. Same thing with TJ Hawkinson. He had a really subpar performance considering where you guys probably drafted him or redraft. I am off of TJ Hawkinson for now until he proves me otherwise. Darnell Mooney, he should be playing this weekend. He might have a solid game, but he's been hurt a decent amount. I need to see what his role is in this offense for now. I know he had a great year last year, but I just got to see what his health is looking like and how he bounces back from that injury. And then Tyler Algier, he had an okay game, but he's an RB2 that has 8 points projected or something like that. I'm staying away from him for now.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with this list. I don't like Minnesota's backfield. It's too split for me, and TJ Hawkinson just has not looked the same
since the injury.
Yeah, and J.J. McCarthy had a great comeback, so of course he's somebody you want to keep an eye on. But again, I don't want to give too much away on this game because I do have this as my game of the week.
Yeah,
so good.
It's an interesting matchup, man. It's an interesting matchup. But we're going to go ahead and go to the next game here. The Buccaneers and the Texans. The Texans, weirdly enough, after the stinker that they put up in week 1, they are minus 2.5 point favorites at home versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is shocking to me. And when I saw this line, I was like, really? They put up 9 points in week 1. The Buccaneers, they were firing on all cylinders week 1. So, they started off slow, but in the second half, they were firing all over the place. So, how do you feel about this line? I feel like the Buccaneers plus 2.5 is easy peasy here, huh?
You never like to say anything like that, but it does feel like the Buccaneers are going to win this game outright. First of all, Baker Mayfield has everything about the Texans' offensive line and their backfield is an absolute disaster. I mean, Chubb still had a pretty good game because he's Derrick Henry Jr. I mean, he's had some major leg injuries and he's come back from them really strong. But I mean, the Texans' receiving core, besides Miko Collins, really is kind of cheeks. I mean, the Bucks, they've got Mike Evans. Chris Godwin might play, but Emeka Egbuka has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. Like, no mistake about it. I like Bucky Irvin better than I like Nick Chubb at this point in his career. it really is kind of puzzling. There must be some kind of injury or something along those lines. But even regardless, the Texans' offensive line can't. It's a turnstile. I think it's the worst in the NFL. Houston is just in for a long season because of that. I haven't seen C.J. Stroud be able to really do anything without proper protection. I don't think he's the best at improvising. Super nice kid, but man, I think Baker Mayfield is a killer, and he goes down there and just handles business. I think that Tampa Bay puts belt to ass in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was shocked that they were favorites here, but let's go ahead and go to the start sit. So, I had like a 72% chance to win in my week 1 matchup for fantasy, and I had to go up against Baker Mayfield, who had like 60 yards passing in the first half, and Emeka Egbuka, who was doing nothing. And then all of a sudden, touchdown to Emeka Egbuka, touchdown to Emeka Egbuka. So did not have, and then I had to play against Deebo Samuel, and it was craziness. But ended up losing week 1, unfortunately, not by much, but they put up the most points against me. Of course, I was the second most points on the week, but Baker Mayfield's a must start for me. This dude is a killer, like you said. He's going out there and slaying defenses week after week after week. He lives and dies by the sword, man. He'll throw some interceptions when he needs to, but he's going to throw as many touchdowns as he does interceptions at the very minimum. Okay, this dude is slinging it, and I love it. I'm glad his career's back in full swing. The Browns probably look really stupid. They feel really stupid letting him go, but Baker Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka, they have a really strong connection already. 2 touchdowns, but between them in week 1. Emeka Egbuka, I'm so happy that he's doing good early because I love him as a person. So really happy to see that he's doing well. So Godwin, I don't think plays. If he does, not very much. So I think Egbuka is still the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I know that's disrespectful to Mike Evans, but he's older, Bucky, he didn't have the best performance rushing, but I think versus this front for the Texans outside of Will Anderson, not much to worry about. I think Bucky Irving can go out there and really turn some heads this week. And I do think C.J. Stroud's a start. I don't think he can do worse than what he did last week. I'm not fully out on him yet. I saw he is a very efficient, accurate quarterback when he needs to. So I'm going to keep C.J. Stroud as my QB2 for now. And then Nico Collins, man. Nico Collins, I said this, and I've been hating on Nico Collins all offseason because I was like, C.J. Stroud's not going to have the protection. Nico Collins is a deep threat. If you don't have time to throw to your deep threat, they're going to be irrelevant. But Nico Collins is super talented. He has a ton of upside every single week. Until he consistently underperforms, I'm just going to start him because you probably drafted him way too high to sit him right now anyways. Then for the sits, Mike Evans, I need to see some more consistency from him. He's Mr. Consistency. I think there's better options to start right now.
That seems to be a strange narrative. He's an absolute start for me until he's not playing football. Because you're going to get 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns every year. And this is a great match. There's a great matchup here. I mean, Derek Stingley Jr. is out there.
And I think that's who's going to be covering Mike Evans. So that's the worry, right? Okay, so sure. We'll see what Mike Evans does. I think he's a borderline wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 for me, but I'd probably start Emeka over him. But still, Mike Evans is a solid option. If you have to start him, I wouldn't feel super bad about it, but would still be at the back of my mind a little, questioning it a little bit. Rachaad White, I think he's a guy that's not going to be doing much for you outside of catching some passes here and there. So not really a guy that I'm comfortable starting right now. And then Jaden Higgins looked really poor throughout his targets. He did get targeted in week 1, but didn't do much with it at all. So I'm staying away from him. I wasn't big on him out of Iowa State anyways. He was one of my least favorite wide receivers in the class, actually. Dalton Schultz, he's a guy that's just super inconsistent, hasn't been fantasy relevant as a consistent start basis for a while, so staying away from him. And then Christian Kirk, he's been hurt. I know he starts this week. We'll have to just see how he does. I think he could be a PPR scam artist, but I'm staying away from him now until I see that he's actually somebody that's being targeted in this offense.
Pretty solid list. I just would start Mike Evans.
Sure, absolutely.
I can never say no to him.
Dude, he's a stud for sure. Then we go to this is the Monday night game, right? The Chargers and the Raiders. Two teams that both looked really good week 1. Obviously, Chargers played the Chiefs. Raiders played the Patriots, but both of these teams looked really good. Raiders surprised me a ton, but the Chargers, I think the Chargers aren't going to be as pass heavy as they were in week 1. I think they knew the Chiefs' run defense was going to be a focal point, a very solid part of the game plan. So they're like, Herbert, you are a good quarterback. We're just going to let you throw. Imagine that. Imagine that, Greg Roman. Just let him throw. That's crazy, you know? But anyways, Chargers go on the road to play in Vegas, so not too far away from Los Angeles, to play the Raiders. Raiders looked really good. Geno Smith had his moments here and there. Genty, I think he's in store for a solid bounce-back game, but I think the Chargers minus 3.5 is solid considering how well they played in week 1 in Brazil. But how do you feel about this line? Any feelings this way or that way?
I think that this is one of my favorite matchups because of the history between Harbaugh and Pete Carroll, going all the way back to Stanford and USC.
Yep.
They clearly detest each other. Now they're in the same division yet again, from the NFC West to the AFC West. The Chargers do have, I'm intrigued by them a little bit because they had such a breakout game in the first game, but I think that they kind of backpedal here. I'm not saying they lose the game, but I'm taking the points in this one for sure.
For the Raiders?
I'll take, Jacoby Myers had a good game. I mean, Geno Smith was able to move the ball. He's got better protection. They've got good players on defense. I think that they can give Herbert, a little bit of a pain in the ass. And we're going to see if Hampton can really get the rock. I know Najee Harris, they said they're going to give more touches to him. But I think that, 3.5, I'm going to take the 3 on a home Monday night dog for sure.
Yeah, Monday Night Football is always weird. But we'll go ahead and go to the start sits for this week. So Justin Herbert, I think, is going to have a solid performance. I think Justin Herbert versus this defense. I know Jamal Adams has been playing his butt off. Trey Harris is not a Raider. Anyways, Justin Herbert, I think he's going to have a solid performance. I think you start him as your QB2, if not even your QB1. I think he's a solid guy. He showed that he is going to continue to be a top 5 quarterback until he gets to the playoffs and inevitably fails right on his face. So Justin Herbert, start for me. Ladd McConkey, he's the most consistent option until he gets hurt. I like him as a floor 8-point, 9-point guy with the touchdown upside and the overall playability to make a big play here and there. So I like him. He's very consistent option in this offense. And then Omarion Hampton. I do think he's a start. I don't like the defensive front a ton. I do like Jamal Adams, who they brought in, the Raiders. But I think Hampton, he's going to have a bounce-back game. He probably gets a rushing touchdown here. I think they return to giving the rock a lot more with Najee and Omarion. So definitely think Omarion's in for another solid game, a little bit more carries than in week 1. Then Ashton Genty. I think both of these guys, it's going to be a hard-nosed football on Monday Night Football. I think Ashton Genty is going to have a solid performance as well. I know he got the touchdown, but he wasn't efficient really. So definitely excited to see what he does against this Chargers defense, which is a little underrated in my opinion. Jacoby Myers. Look, man, at some point he's kind of like Kayshon Boutte, right? A little bit more respected than Boutte, right? Just because he's been doing it for a while. Myers, man, he's just a guy that just continues to perform each and every week, regardless who his quarterback is. He's just a guy that just keeps getting open. Love his film. He's just a hard, gritty guy. I think Jacoby Myers is worth starting in your flex, absolutely. But for the sits, Geno Smith, he's just a guy that I don't think is – he's just not giving you the big-time fantasy games. He's a good quarterback. He just has that kind of Drake May aspect with no rushing upside. So Geno Smith, he's a guy that I'm sitting for now. There's plenty of quarterbacks that are better than him. If you're starting him, that's because your team's probably tanking. No offense to Geno Smith, but it's just he's not the best option to start in fantasy, regardless of how good he is. Then Trey Tucker. I know Trey Tucker had a solid game, 70-ish yards and a touchdown. Stay away from him. He's not a consistent option, I'm telling you. Then Trey Harris, who is not a Las Vegas Raider, he's a Charger. He's a guy that's going to get you probably a target or two, and he needs a touchdown to stay relevant. I say this all the time. If you need a touchdown for him to have a solid game, do not start it unless you absolutely have to. And Najee Harris, I think he will get more attempts than he did in week 1, but still I don't think he's going to have enough to stay relevant. And I think He's just not a guy that I feel comfortable starting until we know more about the snap share and whether or not he gets enough volume to actually have a decent fantasy game. Then Quentin Johnston. Look, I've watched Quentin Johnston year after year after year, okay? He's either really good at football now or that was an anomaly, okay? Because he's really bad at football, or he has been for a significant amount of time now. If he just figured out how to catch and he's not breaking my heart anymore, cool. But last year he had these games, and then other games he was invisible. So do not let this guy fool you. Sell him immediately. And if he proves me wrong, I will eat. Look, I'll eat crow, whatever. But Quentin Johnston is not a guy that I want on my roster right now. I will sell him for a second-round pick, an early second-round pick right now. So Johnston, I'm sorry, buddy. I hope that you're magically good at football, but for now, I'm staying away from him. I'm staying away from him.
He's the only one that I would start out of all those. Everything else he pretty much got, but he did get 2 touchdowns last week.
He did. He looked good. He looked good.
Well, here's the thing. His drop rate is over exaggerated because his drops are in key moments.
Yes.
If you go overall, he's actually under league average. It's just in those couple of key moments where he's dropped the ball in national games like this and stuff. I would buy him. I don't know if I'd pay a second for him. It would have to be what the team, what it is. But he, I noticed he went big on waivers. I like Quentin Johnston. I mean, the dude's taking so much critique, but I think that he's a baller. I think that he could be the best option receiving, and I do like Ladd too. But I think Quentin Johnston is just the guy that they're going to keep going to. I know that Harbaugh sees something in him. I see something in him. He's the only guy that I would start out of those starts that you don't have yet.
He's just in a really interesting situation because they drafted Trey Harrison the second. They already have Ladd, who's their number one, and they're projected to be a run-heavy football team. So I just don't know how much upside. Quentin Johnston did get 2, touchdowns. He's actually playing like he's 6'3" and not like he's 5'7", because that was my biggest critique on him. I know the drops were a big issue at certain times, but he just played like he was 5'6". And he just didn't utilize his frame whatsoever. So he's doing that now somehow. He's coming down with catches, getting open deep downfield. I just need to see more of it, and then I'll eat the crow. But right now, I am so far away from starting Quentin Johnston right now. But with that being said, I believe that is the last game of the night. Let me see. It is the last game of the night, but we get to go over some college football. And next week, guys, if you're curious on whether we actually know what we're talking about or not, next week I will take the first 2 episodes of Cover 2 Cash. Shout out Cover 2 Cash. We're going to go over those games. We're going to see our records against the spread for college, and then we will have our records up on the screen, probably right underneath that week 2 graphic right there. But the most exciting game, I think, in my opinion, of the weekend is right off the bat, Georgia, number 6, going on the road against number 15, Tennessee. It's an SEC matchup. I think both of these teams are on heaters right now. Obviously, they've both started the season off, undefeated. So how do you feel about this line? Georgia is -3.5 currently.
So it looks like Tennessee's getting in a rhythm with Aguilar quarterback. It seems like it's been an upgrade from Nico Aliamava,
which is surprising.
Well, sometimes it just happens to go that way, and he's really struggled out west, but he doesn't have nearly the talent that he had here. At the beginning of the season, I talked about Texas, how they could potentially lose 4 games, and this might be the same thing with Georgia, but this will be the game that tells me. Because, last week Georgia played at home against Austin Peay and won 26-7. So and they didn't look exactly impressive in the season opener. I mean, they played Marshall, who had half the team gone and stuff like that. So this is their first true test. The vibes feel like the Vols at home. They're really starting to recruit better and be like the Tennessee of old. Unfortunately for me as an Alabama fan, I don't want to see them succeed. These are, but let's just be real about it. I think that this is a must-have for Heupel. If he gets this game I think Tennessee will really start to believe themselves and be a threat to actually go to the SEC championship if they pull this one off. I think they play this game and then they play at Alabama later in the year. But this will be a big home crowd's going to be violent, and I just don't know if Gunnar Stockton can do what he's been doing against these smaller schools on the road. This is a real big game for him. 100,000 large in Neyland. I mean, that's a lot of people that love their team. These aren't if Tennessee can run the football, and Georgia just doesn't have the continuity yet. I don't know. We're going to see, though. I mean, Kirby Smart has proven to absolutely be a dominant coach. I will never take anything away from him, but this feels like an upset. I think that it's like the Alabama game. I think Tennessee wins it on a field goal to end the game.
So for me, Tennessee, and I don't like saying this, but Tennessee, in my opinion, has one of the most crazed fan bases that they love the Vols, man. They just, especially when they're at home with the checkerboard stuff, they bleed Tennessee orange, man. They just bleed it. And I think this is going to be a really tough test for Kirby Smart because going on the road at Tennessee is just not easy. It's not easy.
Well, they've won there a lot. They haven't lost there in forever, but it just feels like this team's taking a step back. Remember, this team in Texas. I talked about it, like I said, in the previous videos when we were doing our all 22s, that it feels like Georgia just kind of we're going to have to see it a little more.
Gunnar Stockton's going to have to prove it to me, man, because he's the biggest question mark. I know Tennessee, the Nico Mavliava situation kind of screwed them a little bit. Props to them for sticking to their guns and saying, go ahead, leave. We're not, thank goodness. And they had to go get a guy from App State in Joey Aguilar, who was not their first option. He was probably their fifth or sixth option. And he ends up coming in there and really balling out, man. So I think Stockton's the better quarterback. I don't know, man. If I had to pick, I guess I'm going Georgia just because I like the coach better. The overall talent for me is Georgia's side. So we'll see. I think Georgia minus 3.5. I think I'm just going to pick Georgia to win outright. But 3.5 it's really good line overall. But moving on to the next game, I'll let you go over this one a little bit. Arkansas going to Oxford, Mississippi to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. The Rebels are 7.5-point favorites, which seems a little crazy to me considering how much they've struggled the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, this is a whole different outlook of a football team. I mean, it's been evident without Jackson Dart there that there's regression. It just happens at the collegiate level. Your roster turnover is much higher than it is in the National Football League. Even with NIL, you can't sign these guys to contracts. They're year-to-year basis free agents. But Oxford is, Lane Kiffin's really got that program together. Arkansas, Sam Pittman, God bless him. I mean, they seem to look improved. 7.5 at home on an SEC game. It feels like a 7. And because it feels like a 7, I'm going to take the Hogs only for the points for the sake of the show here. But I would not be surprised if Ole Miss can pull away here. But Bobby Petrino might have a little something up his sleeve over there in Arkansas. He used to run that show and things along that sort, and they can pull out some fun stuff. We'll just see how Ole Miss is able to handle Arkansas.
I'm taking Arkansas here. I'm taking Arkansas plus 7.5. That's my favorite line of the weekend for me. Ole Miss, their quarterback, Austin Simmons, has more interceptions than he does touchdowns, and they played Kentucky, who in my opinion is the worst team in the SEC. No offense to Kentucky, but offensively you guys are horrible. And then they played Georgia State, okay? You shouldn't have more interceptions than you do touchdowns. That's just inexcusable. I think this Ole Miss Rebels team might even lose to Arkansas because Taylon Green is really, heating up. I know they didn't play, any high-level teams, but neither is Ole Miss, and Ole Miss hasn't really been cooking. So, like Arkansas there a ton. But let's go ahead and go to Florida, going to Death Valley, playing number 3 LSU. LSU are 8.5-point favorites. I mean, is USF just really that good? I like Florida a lot. I like Florida a ton. And USF is just a really good football program all of a sudden. That quarterback Brown is a menace. And I think Florida just got upset by really, head rushing team right now in USF. And LSU, I mean, I like LSU. They're my pick to go to the national championship versus Penn State. They haven't looked great. I'm going to go LSU plus 8.5, but I don't like it at all.
You mean minus 8.5?
Yeah, minus 8.5.
All right, so we saw DJ Lagaway really look sloppy against South Florida.
Yeah.
I think that everything in Gainesville is on fire right now. I mean, it's just such a tough place to coach because they want results. They want to win. It's just like any other job in the SEC. And we're going to see how this team rallies around Billy Napier. It's not like South Florida went in there and whipped their ass. All right, The game came down to the end. The game was in Florida. And I think that there might have been a situation kind of similar to Alabama and Florida State. But I think that there are things that could be cleaned up with Florida. I think that the point spread is an overreaction a little bit. I think that the Florida Gators can cover this line. I think the game will be super competitive. These teams play every year. Now that's going to change to where it's every other year, but unless they're a protected rival, but I don't see that happening here. But the game is in LSU. I'm not sure if it's a night game or not, but nonetheless, I think that DJ Lagaway is going to go out there and really play well. Like you said, LSU hasn't exactly been beating the brakes off of people. They're highly ranked. They had their impressive win against Clemson, but then last week, how did Clemson look against Troy? Yeah. So what's the measuring stick that we're going here? Florida's got the toughest schedule in college football, the toughest one. There's nobody that's got a tougher schedule than Florida. It's a road game, but I'm going to take the 8.5 points. Florida might pull the upset in Death Valley. That'll set fire alarms off Brian Kelly, and it'll get the pressure off Billy Napier a little bit. But I think that this point spread is way too high.
Yeah. I will say, outside of Florida, Mississippi State's the only other person that plays as many ranked teams as Florida. We have a tough schedule too, man. Look, I got to throw it out there. When we're talking about tough schedules, I got to talk about the Mississippi State Bulldogs, man. We're doing just fine. Just fine. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about one of the other big-time games of the week. Number 16, Texas A&M going to play Notre Dame on the road, number 8. Notre Dame 6.5-point favorites. Texas A&M's had a Notre Dame problem. Last year they lost to them. How do you feel about this overall spread here?
Can you imagine Notre Dame starting off 0-2? Oh, my goodness. This is the game where I think this is way too many points to be laying. Yeah. So I'm going to take A&M getting the points. It is a road game in South Bend. I mean, the temperature should be fine, though. It's not a true cold road. Yeah. You know, this is a non-conference matchup. But these are the kind of non-conference matchups we love to see. But I do think that Marcel Reed can get them going, and this game should be close. I think Notre Dame ultimately does pull it out, but Texas A&M will definitely give them a run for their money. The game could be a field goal either way, so I wouldn't be surprised if A&M won. Elko's doing a great job coaching down there in College Station.
Absolutely.
Texas A&M, but Texas A&M is never, they're not a 10-win football team. It just never seems to happen with them. I mean, especially with all the talent that they've had all these years, and I mean, going all the way back to Johnny Manziel, and just can't really seem to get that going. This would be a big, big game for them. Revenge spot from last year, but I'll take A&M and the 6.5.
Yeah, I'm 100% there with you. We're actually to a T here. I think Notre Dame does pull off the win, but I think it's probably by a field goal or a couple of points here and there. I think Notre Dame pulls it out, but I do like plus 6.5 for Texas A&M. I really liked what the quarterback put on film in week 1 for Notre Dame, a guy that hasn't really started before. He looked really good, man. I thought he was slinging it, ran pretty well as well. So definitely like that. I also like Marcel Reed, of course, but Notre Dame, I expect to win by a few points. But I'm taking the points with Texas A&M. Next up, we have Vanderbilt, the Commodores, going on the road to play South Carolina and the Gamecocks. Look, Lenore Sellers, he's been a mixed bag this year. He's looked really good at times. Other times he's not looked so great. Yeah, I know it's only, week. What, this is week 2? Is this week 2? This is week 3.
It's week 3.
It's week 3. It has week 2 there. Anyways, week 3, anything can happen. But Lenoris, he's up there with, talks of being the number one pick in the NFL draft. I do think South Carolina does cover this minus 5.5 here. So definitely like the Gamecocks here. Even though Vanderbilt with Paiva, man, I don't ever know with them. They're just a team that just keeps doing stuff, man. But I do like South Carolina in this game. So I'm going to stick with the Gamecocks here.
I am as well, not just because our sponsor is cut, but nonetheless, it's because Vanderbilt really had to pull out some magic sticks last week to come back in that Virginia Tech game and pull it off. I mean, it was just out of this world. You had 300 yards in the second half. I don't see you doing that again. I don't see you going into Bryce Stadium, what's the name of Williams-Brice Stadium down there. And, South. I think this is a night game too. Which I don't put too much into when I'm betting. I think that's just more of a mystique for college football. But I think South Carolina I think its game's really tight in the first half. Super tight. Maybe even Vandy's up 3 at the half. But I think that eventually South Carolina, there comes a point where you just start to pull away. Yep. I don't know anybody on Vanderbilt that can guard Nick Harbor. I just don't. There's nobody on that team defensively that I think can keep up with him. Good luck jamming him to the line of scrimmage. Good luck getting deep.
What
it's
did he
over.
do in week 2?
I think that they could just pull away. So South Carolina.
I watched him in week 1, and I saw him have a big time drop. But outside of that, he looked really good and explosive. Let's see. He was held catchless versus South Carolina State, but obviously 3 for 99 and a touchdown week 1. So yeah, he was definitely on a snap count probably in week 2. But definitely curious to see what he does against Vandy because they're going to need him. I mean, Vandy's not going to roll over and die. They really have a belief for whatever reason that they're going to be super competitive in the SEC. But yeah, I like South Carolina here. But the last game we are actually probably going to disagree with here. Number 12, Clemson going on the road to play Georgia Tech. I love Georgia Tech and how they play football. Clemson is minus 3.5 point favorites. Go ahead and tell me a little bit of your thoughts on this game.
Last year, this game got out of hand a little bit. ACC matchup. Clemson really just – they weren't impressive in week 1. They weren't impressive last week. And this game can potentially, be a harbinger of doom if you're not careful going down to Atlanta there. And Haynes King can ball, man. He's in his last year, I think, because he's been playing quarterback for 15 years in college football. Yeah. But he runs Brent Key's offense really well. They took Georgia to the edge last year, should have won that game. But I think they're going to get up for this. I think the fans are going to be out there. I do think that Dabo will have the crew ready, though. I think Georgia Tech can win this game outright. It's going to be super close. So when I think it's super close and it's a home dog, I'm going to take the home points every time here. But I do like the coaching on both sides of the ball, or both teams. Dabo's a proven winner. As corny as he is, he still gets the job done. But I don't think Clemson is this juggernaut that people thought they were going to be. Yeah. I mean, let's just be real. Last year they had to squeak, and Southern Methodist had to choke it for them to get in the playoff. They choked that game against Clemson. Clemson came roaring back and won the ACC, and then absolutely got whooped in that first-round game. Was it Texas? I want to say it was Texas that just absolutely manhandled them. So I think Georgia Tech, is a big win for their program, hosting Clemson and rising up the ranks in the ACC. It would not shock me. Give me the points.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech, there's a hard argument to not have a number next to their name. They've really been kind of just running things. Haynes King's looked amazing running the football, right? I don't love him as a passer at all the times, but, I think Clemson has the talent to really figure this out and beat Georgia Tech here. But Georgia Tech is a great team. I think Haynes King's a little beat up. I know they're still going to play him, but he's a little beat up. He's taken a lot of damage over the first 2 weeks of the season, just running him over and over and over again. So I like Clemson here. I like Cade Klubnik to come back and kind of put a stamp on the season and just kind of be like, hey, look, we're not terrible. Even though the Troy game didn't look great, right? The LSU game didn't look great. There's a lot of concerns here, but I think they're going to rally, and I think they beat Georgia Tech, and they probably beat them by a touchdown, I think. So that is our picks for the week. So that's it for me, man. That's it for episode 3. Awesome.
It's good stuff, man. We talk betting, we talk fantasy, we talk all the stuff that's pertinent to the NFL, and we get our squeeze in college in there because I absolutely love college football more than it's even possible. It's my favorite sport, but we do what's entertaining, and we want people to watch. I mean, we've got 17 viewers. We want to thank you for spending your Friday evening watching us.
Absolutely.
Out here, and like I said, at the very beginning of the episode about Charlie Kirk, you guys just need to take care of yourselves out there and be mindful of other people and how they think isn't hurting you. So just, take care of each other, take care of your friends. You need to relax, go out, have fun, spend time with your family, watch some ball, some great college slate on tomorrow. One game we didn't get to mention because of the point spread was Alabama is hosting the Badgers. So that game starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time on ABC, followed by Georgia and Tennessee. But there's some good matchups. I mean, after this week is the last of the non-conference, then it's conference play for most of the leagues for the rest of the season. We'll start getting the meat and potatoes of it. It'll be a week 4 already. It's a third of the season gone. It goes so fast. But the NFL's got a nice long season. That goes kind of healthy. So we'll see the Packers host the Browns next week. Looking forward to that. I'm sorry, on the road. They're on the road in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So it's our first road game of the year. I mean, but starting off 2-0 and beating 2 playoff teams is where it's at. Good quality wins. But I'm looking forward to Alabama and Wisconsin. I want to see if they can maintain what they did last week. Energy feels good from my end. Energy feels good, feels positive. Because after that's the bye week. And then after that is the Georgia Bulldogs. So
absolutely.
We're going to see how Georgia does. I'm really intrigued to see how Georgia does. You got anything you want to plug or promote before we get out of here?
I mean, not really, guys. Y'all usually the users, the viewers, you guys know what I do. You know what Justin does. Justin does the sports betting. He's going to win you your money. I'm going to win you your fantasy matchups. So if you guys are interested in winning money and winning fantasy, this is the best duo, man, that I can think of. So
right there.
Absolutely.
Fantasy trophy.
Yeah. So, yeah, guys, just stay safe out there and let's win us some fantasy football matchups. Have a ton of really good matchups tomorrow for college, and then we get the NFL season. Well, not the NFL season, but the NFL Week 2 kicking off Sunday. So, great weekend of football, as always, as it's going to be for the next few months. So, enjoy it while it lasts, because in the off season, everybody's not going to be happy since there's no football. So,
be on the lookout at Justin Paul Sport. My free play is up. Looks like Kansas State is getting whooped by Arizona. So my free play is not panning out right now. But remember to go to KUTT bet and sign up. Use the code COVER2CASH.
It's only a 1-point game, by the way.
Well,
16 to 17.
Oh, well, they came roaring back.
16 to 17. And Kansas State's got the ball on the 1-yard line, it looks like. So I'm about to start watching that game.
Well, it's on Fox, so... And with that being said, I'm going to close out with a signature sign-off, as I should start doing, because there's a line that I always believe in, and that is, it ain't over until you say it's over. So until next Friday, 9 p.m., you guys have a great weekend and enjoy some football. Thank you.